just a bloke in a bar.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to an extremely special episode of Bloke in a Bar because it is week one of the 2022 NRL season. Get around it, get excited, fire up your cats because we are absolutely aroused right now. Lucky this huge, heavy desk is here because I tell you what, this would be turned into an R-rated video very quickly. Now, before we get into the Rugby League chatter, we must say that today is the day. Footy Cliche 2022 merch is dropping tonight at 7 p.m. AEDT. That's Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time. Is that correct, Kuru?
That's the one.
Where's the S though? Savings time. That's one of the world's great mysteries that they've just got rid of the S. But 7 p.m. New South Wales time, 6 p.m. Queensland time. You guys can see it. We've got the new hats. We've got the new socks, the new black bloke socks, but we have the footy cliche. We've got the eyes up footy. We got this year is our year, and we've got full credit to the boys. Now, you must be a member of the Bloke Club. Go to www.bloke.club to join. It is free. You should have already received an email if you already are a Bloke Club member. So check your email, whether it's spam or it's in your normal inbox, but just check your email from Bloke Club to give you your code to get in. Your code to get in will be in your email, plus we will text you at 6 o'clock. The only thing is, or 7 o'clock, New South Wales. The only thing is sometimes those texts take a while to get to you. So if you haven't got the code at 6, you may as well just check before 6. Your email, it will have the code to enter the site to get the merch. Limited amount of shirts, guys. Limited. Once they're gone, they are gone. So get in there quick before they sell out. Next year will probably be a whole different batch of footy cliches. So if you want these cliches, make sure to get there. And as usual, it supports the platform. If you want us to have a lot of great content this year, the best way to support us is either buy the beer or buy the merch. But I have the great Gurachi Gurino Rugby League Kangaroo here with me, mate. How are you feeling?
Mate, I'm super excited. Took the missus out for dinner on Saturday night. Bit of a 6-month farewell. All the best.
Yes.
Very, very excited, mate. Cannot wait for round one. Team list tomorrow as well. Very keen to see how it all plays out.
Absolutely. And just before if you have any issues with the code or whatever, email customerservice@bloke.shop. And so we've got black caps. We restocked our brown caps as well, the classic ones that sold out really quickly. Black shops, and we restocked our brown socks as well. We have stubby holders and bottle openers. And we'll just get it out of the way quickly so that we can get into the footy. We are in every single IGA, every single celebrations, and every single bottle in ACT and New South Wales. Now, if you aren't in ACT New South Wales, go to our store locator on our website and you can find the stores that stock us. But here is the stores in Spotlight. IGA Oberon, IGA Tregear, IGA Warriewood, Porter's Liquor Piermont, BYO Cellars Nelson Bay, Celebrations Adamstown, Centenary Hotel Townsville. I think we're on tap there as well, Centenary Hotel. East End Hotel Bundaberg, Yandina Hotel Sunny Coast on tap, Eagle Tavern Eagleby, Porter's Plainlands Tavern, and Federal Hotel Ipswich. So make sure to get down your local. Footy is back. It is the beer of footy. We're in every IGA, Bottle and celebrations in New South Wales and ACT. If it goes well, they'll put us across the whole country. So get in there, support the platform. But some absolutely terrible news happening over recent days. Late Friday, early Saturday morning, Shane Warne was reported dead at 52. 145 tests, 708 wickets, 194 one-day internationals for Australia, 293 wickets. The greatest bowler of all time. This was absolutely devastating. And I say that as a guy that didn't even grow up watching cricket. You know, what's so interesting about this is I didn't watch any cricket growing up. If there was one bloke that I knew outside Sir Donald Bradman, it was Shane Warne. And it's absolutely, I think it's so much more than cricket. And I said it on the weekend, but it really does feel like we lost a piece of Australia.
Mate, I grew up loving cricket, absolutely loving it, and I probably lost interest in it. You know, not lost interest in it, but just wasn't as keen on it, 15 years ago or so. And mate, when I woke up and looked at this, not many, not many deaths of people that I don't know knocked me around. This rattled me. Yeah. This proper rattled me. And I sat there and I thought about it and I thought, you know what, the moment that I sort of lost a bit of interest in cricket was when he retired.
Yeah.
I mean, I still remember being out there that day at the SCG and it was surreal. There's guys that know a lot more about cricket than me, but when you think about his career and what he did, unbelievable. You think about, he's only second to Muralitharan as far as most wickets ever, and the standard of teams that Warne was coming up against, the pitches that Warne was playing on more often, he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing.
Yep.
It's crazy. Obviously on the pitch, incredible, just as good off the field as well, which is, I think, part of the reason why we love him so much. So, it really knocked me around, to be honest with you.
Yeah, mate, I'm the same, and I didn't even watch cricket growing up, but he really bridged the gap between megastar and everyday bloke. It's not very often, and I'll use an example, even though Cristiano Ronaldo is from a very poor area, there is a certain sense of that's a megastar. There's a distance between him and the everyday man. Whereas a Shane Warne, there was no distance between him and the everyday man. He was through and through. You could see yourself in Warne, or you could see your larrikin mate that loves a pie, loves, cheese toasties, Vegemite with butter. He loved, he loved the real basic things that everyday blokes do. Whereas I think in the modern era of sport, it's very hard to find an elite athlete like that, because you either don't have the talent that Warne did, which is crazy, because when you watch a doco, he wasn't he was good.
He's going to play AFL.
He was an AFL player.
Yeah.
And he couldn't make it. It's just crazy.
I every few weeks, especially during the basketball season, in my boys group chat, there's always an amazing stat by Steph Curry, just that he is so much better than everyone else in the world at this incredibly hard skill. Mate, I would argue that the skill set Warne was a master of was even harder than that, and the gap between him and, I don't even know who the next bloke would be.
Yeah, so true.
It was incredible. The other thing you got to consider is that Warne, all the wickets he collected, crazy. The guys that were bowling before him, Brett Lee, Glenn McGrath, these guys are also some of the greatest wicket takers ever. I mean, it's not like there was peanuts bowling before him and he got to take 10 wickets every game. It's a bit like Steph Curry. The more that you look at Shane Warne's career and his achievements, the scarier it gets.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, watching the doco really made me realise this guy wasn't just against the teams that weren't that great. He'd take a bunch of wickets and then go missing, and he slowly builds up this tally. He was, if anything, against a better team, he would play better. The documentary really, really shone a light. Again, I knew he was as a cultural icon, but I feel like, especially the way Australia has changed too, that knockabout bloke doesn't get celebrated as much. And when we do see a knockabout bloke, we kind of gravitate towards them, because it is very Australian that, although, don't get me wrong, Warne loved to give himself a rap or whatever, he still was a knockabout bloke. He was still one of the boys, loved to have a beer, even to his detriment, in the sense of, if you could look at his diet, you'd say, mate, get on the healthy stuff, imagine what he could do. But he was so talented that he was so competitive as well. But this really rocked me. I just can't think of outside of Steve Irwin, I can't think of another Australian, Bob Hawke, but he was getting a bit on. But that's the kind of names that I would put him near.
Yeah, for me, it rattled me more than those other two.
Yeah.
The other layer to Shane Warne, and cricket fans will be able to talk about it more than me. He was along in the same era as Stuart McGill. Stuart McGill, if Shane Warne didn't exist, I think there's a fair argument that Stuart McGill could have been the greatest spinner we've ever seen.
Wow.
But Warne was so good that McGill just never got a bait. Whenever he did, he killed it.
Yeah, okay.
Some of his numbers are arguably better than Warne at different points in his career, but he never had an opportunity because Shane Warne played for so long and was too good. So that's the other... it's like having Joey and Freddie along at the same time. It's incredible. As I said, the deeper you look into Warnie's career, the more impressive it is. I thought it was, sad as it all was, it just summed up being an Aussie legend, seeing cans of VB, meat pies being left on the statue.
Mate, absolutely. And it showed you how deeply ingrained he was with our culture.
Yeah.
Because VB and meat pies is so part of Australian culture. And it seems a bit absurd to compare him to VB and meat pies, but it's more just the mythical nature of Shane Warne. He was larger than life. Imagine being a batter and Shane Warne, after he, halfway through his career, and you just see this mythical creature walk out. It almost rattle you before you got there. It almost it's like you'd look across from you and you might see, Andrew Johns. It's like this. His aura already intimidates you to start making decisions you wouldn't make before. And Shane Warne is Joey times, whatever. Cricket's a world sport. Think about how good you have to be to be the greatest of all time, I think it's the third biggest sport in the world. So we're talking about India, which is, 1 billion people, 1.5 billion people. And then you've got, obviously, New Zealand, you've got Australia, we've got England, which is, 100 million people? I don't know what the amount of people live there is, but he was the best.
And then for people that don't have a deep understanding of cricket, you've got to also consider that, the couple of billion people in India, the spinners over there, it's much easier to bowl spin on those pitches than it is in Australia. So for him to do, I keep saying it, the deeper you go, the more impressive it is. I said on my Instagram the other day, I think Australia's a better country for having Shane Warne. I think an international sport is a better sport for having Shane Warne, which I think is the ultimate compliment.
Oh, mate. Imagine if Shane Warne was coming through today with social media. I mean... He'd get into a lot of trouble.
He's not, to be honest with you.
Thank God he's not. There'd be so many people like wanting to, he's doing this and that, let's just imagine the world that just embraced him and celebrated him. I just, as I said, I didn't even grow up watching cricket, and Warne was an icon, and you always you spoke about him in the playgrounds. You saw people that didn't know anything about cricket pretending to be him. So. Very, very sad. Very sad. Condolences to his family and friends. They must be absolutely rattled. And it just doesn't seem real. Like in Australia, with Warne not living, doesn't seem real. Doesn't seem real. So condolences to his family and his mates, and hopefully the Australian cricket can kick on from their last Ashes series. I mean, in his first Ashes series, the ball of the century. That, if you put that in a movie, you would say, fuck off. As if. Honestly, if you put that in a movie, you'd be like, that's a joke. Like, you're taking the piss now. You're going too far into the, magical shit that doesn't happen. He actually did that.
I was talking to a mate the other day that was at that game. And he said that, when it happened, when you're in the stands, you see it happen and you're 100 metres away. So you think, oh, good ball. Then the replay started showing, and he said the whole place just went silent, going,
really?
What the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
How on earth? Yeah. And I mean... Mate, ball of the century should be the crowning moment. I'm not sure if it is in his career, really. So there were so many other moments. It was also, just being the larrikin he is, never got a Test 100. I think I read that he's got the most runs in Test cricket without scoring 100. Got out on 99 in one game, and watching the commentary of him commentating that moment in hindsight, just unbelievable, just crazy. It's one of those things. I think it's probably better remembered because he got 99 than the 100.
Yeah, for sure. It's like it plays into that larrikin, have a laugh. Oh my God, I couldn't make it. What's interesting too, his commentary was always harsh and he was always opinionated, but now there's stories coming out of his generosity. For example, I think a lot of the English players wanted to come to this golf course. So he organised helicopters in, he got the connection to get them in the golf course, connection for them to stay, did the whole lot. And then I think the English gave him a gift or whatever. The bill came, and the bill apparently was 5 figures. So let's say $10,000 to $20,000, maybe even more. And Warne just paid for it. Think about that. England, you organised everything. The bill comes, and I forgot who was telling the story. I think it was another cricketer, and he just paid for it. Okay, yep, sweet, boom. That's how generous you have to be to do something like that. Didn't even bat an eyelid. Didn't even say, is England going to pay for it? So. Yeah, man. There's a reason why he is so loved.
It was Adam Gilchrist.
Adam Gilchrist said that.
Yeah.
Didn't even bat an eyelid. And he's got other stories too of he's got some other stories that if you get a second, go to Fox Sports' website, and he just rattles off a bunch of I saw a comment on one of my pictures of how Warne was up. So they were playing in the Ashes, and obviously he wasn't batting. There was all these kids around, and Warne was the only one that went down and was high-fiving the kids, getting autographs, and all the players, rightly so, they just want to chill, sit down. And Warne, basically to embarrass them, was like, boys, get down here. Forced the whole Australian team to come down, give all the kids high fives, all the kids signatures, and brought them back up. So these are the things you don't see, and it sucks that we talk about them after his career, but that is the way of things, is when such a momentous thing happens, it makes everyone take a step back and, I guess, appreciate how lucky we were to live in an age where we got to see Warne do his best work.
Mate, I reckon on Saturday I would have watched 15 videos of him just giving spin classes at tea time. All those ones on YouTube you can go and watch. I sat there and watched all of them. It didn't help me in any way, shape or form.
Yeah, rattle you more.
But just listening to him talk about, and if you don't understand how hard leg spin bowling is, just go stand at a pool table and just try and do the motion with your fingers. It is impossible to land it. What is it, 22 metres at the other end of a pitch with a bloke trying to hit you out of the park and still make them look stupid.
After 3 days
Incredible.
of play.
Oh, mate. He's probably been out every night before too. I mean, Warne's just an absolute freak. I think he's probably number 2 after Bradman for me, but I don't think you could possibly say he's not the best bowler we've seen.
It's just so sad, man, to think like such a piece of Australia. It just feels like a piece of Australia is lost. You know, just this chunk of like what was so great about being an Aussie, like he was our thing that we could celebrate. So, yeah, fucking sucks, man. Fuck it, I just can't believe it. I can't believe it. At 52 years old.
I refreshed the phone. I sort of thought, surely not.
Yeah, I thought it was a G-up as well.
Right. Yeah.
I thought it was a G-up. Like, when I saw it come up, I think it was on Instagram maybe. Yeah, couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it. But, yeah, condolences. And, yeah, the only silver lining is his legacy will echo forever. Just like Bradman's legacy continues to echo, we continue to bring up his name. I think Warne will be exactly the same for as long as, well, we hope for as long as cricket exists. They still remember guys like Bradman, guys like Warne. Yeah, sucks. It absolutely sucks. Marsh as well passed away.
Yeah, it's 2 of the real larrikins. They would have been having a good time up there on Sunday, no doubt about it.
No doubt about it. Marsh would have been like, come on in, Warne.
Get under the wing.
Got a couple of beers for you.
Yeah.
Let's get amongst it.
Show you around.
You know, and so very, very sad day, sad week, for cricket. Very sad week. Now, we have the NRL news. Fogarty out for 4 months. I think we already spoke about this on last Wednesday's podcast, correct? But just going to get your thoughts quickly.
Terrible for Canberra. Terrible for Jamal Fogarty. He's obviously come down from the Gold Coast. In that trial, seemed to be a perfect fit the other day for Jack Whiten, who played great alongside him. Feel for Jamal Fogarty. Silver lining, does give a young bloke a chance. This Brad Schneider.
Yep.
We didn't know who he was a couple of weeks ago. We watched him in trials. I went back and watched some of his cup games the other day. Very different player to Jamal Fogarty, but I think he can hit the ground running.
Yep.
I think it's going to be a very interesting few weeks for Canberra. They've got a mixed run. I think they've got 2 or 3 hard games. I think they play the Sharks week 1 in Canberra though, so we can cop that. Then I think they play Manly and Penrith in about round 4 and 5. So they've got a few weeks to get themselves ready for those games. Yeah, I might be a bit of a hot take, but I think there's a world where Schneider could hold this jersey.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Fogarty, don't get me wrong, great player, but he was fighting for his spot. You know, it wasn't a guarantee that he would just keep that spot no matter what.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot. I mean, we said before, he's got Sam Williams in the club. It would have been a close to like match to put him in there. He's gone for the youth in Brad Schneider, who's a very different footballer. He's got Ricky Stewart's backing. I think he'll probably be the goal kicker as well in this side.
So you've heard that he's got the spot?
He's got the spot, yeah.
Wow. So Schneider, exclusive.
Well, yeah.
Kangaroo,
yeah.
Kangaroo with the exclusive.
Schneider, I think he will be the 7. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a 7 the whole year. That'll sound ridiculous and crazy, but I think he's got the ability to hold on to the jersey.
Yeah,
and
wow.
He's a right side player. You'll see Jack Whiten play left. As much as we've been saying all offseason they need a general to direct them around, there also has never been a time in rugby league where you can get away with 2 ball running halves, more than now in my opinion. So keep an eye on him. I think he's going to do really well.
And to be fair, like Schneider is an out-and-out half. So the issue isn't necessarily that they can only get away with a structured half. The concern with Whiten is he's not necessarily like he is. Let's say there's a scale of 1 to 10 of out and out halves. He's actually on the. Let's say 10 is you're an out and out half. 1 is you're a big ball running.
He's
outside back.
Yeah,
so that's the concern. Is like he doesn't even. You could argue he doesn't even pass as a half. He passes as a ball running player that has some of the best ball running in the comp. That's not a knock on Whiten. It's just explaining the type of player he is. I mean, you could even argue he could be a ball playing 13. That's how big he is. Whereas Schneider is an out and out half. So there's certain skill set. He may not be as clinical as Reynolds at kicking, but he would be closer to Reynolds at kicking than say a Whiten. And so if he is close enough to the structure that they need, he may be just enough structure that they need. Now that you've watched more of him, would you say that when I said he reminded me, again, this is off a very limited amount of games, he did remind me of a Burton. Was that If you watch more of it, is that correct or incorrect?
Yeah, no, he's a lot like Burton, just like the body structure and everything and the way he moves.
Yep.
His support play is fantastic. He looks to me to be deceptively really strong as well.
Nice.
Which Burton is too, but mate, when I was watching him, he reminded me of, remember when Dugan first burst onto the scene?
Yes, he was skinny as, but strong as shit.
And everyone just fell off him. Blokes were getting thrown left, right and centre. He just, I don't know, he's just got something about him. I might be a little bit too high on him, but mate, he must be, for Ricky Stewart to sit there and go, fuck, I've just spent a whole preseason with Fogarty at 7. I've got a week till the season starts. I've got Sam Williams who knows our game plan inside out, or this young kid that's played one game of first grade.
Yep.
For him to go, you're my guy with 10 days prep, it says a lot to me.
Do you think this is more evidence of Ricky going, I need to build for the future? So we've seen Savage kind of pushed into that fullback role. We've seen Tomoko put in that centre role. We've seen even Semi Valame. Is it Valame?
I think so.
Valame.
Yeah.
Apologies if I got that wrong. Put in the centre role before Croker. It's a very youthful kind of direction that Ricky seems to be going. And then this selection, do you feel that Ricky is trying to, I guess, prep for, let's say this year doesn't go that well, at least I've blooded a bunch of young players. I can go to the board then and say, look at all these young players, we just need a year or two, and the rebuild happens without having to blow the whole place up?
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, it's a narrative that would fit 100%. I mean, at the same time, if you are Ricky Stewart, you did the same thing last year. Are you going a bit crazy if you don't try and change it up a little bit?
Oh, for sure. And I think Schneider trialled well enough to earn him that spot. I think
it's a good spot to the rest of the squad to say, hey, you know, what you did 2 years ago in a grand final, you need to do it now. Absolutely.
So we'll talk about Walters really quickly, and then we'll just get straight into basically season preview. It'll be like a small preview of the game, but we'll give a preview of an oversight of how we think the team is going to go, and also like we won't. I don't like doing like this team will finish 5th, this team will finish 16th, but I want to do like the brackets of where we feel they are as a club. So, for example, if we're going to talk about the Broncos, we would probably say 10th to 14th is where they land. If we were going to do, Storm, we would say 1 to 4. Doggies would probably say anywhere from 12th to 16th. So we'll go through that. Again, that's not to say that's our answer. We'll go through it, but it's just an example of like brackets rather than saying, oh, fuck, this team's winning the wooden spoon, rah.
Yeah.
It's more just where they are as a club, and if they can finish better than the bracket we think, that's a great year. If they finish in that bracket, that's a solid year. If they finish below, that's a disappointing year. So Kevin Walters re-signs until the end of 23. I thought this was a no-brainer.
It makes sense.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's not like they've signed him for 5 years. It's another year. Is what it is.
Yeah, is what it is. But we'll get straight into the preview. Okay, so Penrith first, as they are playing Manly. We've got their squads just here. So Penrith for the year, I think they're red hot. They're red hot. Any team with Nathan Cleary in it, and then you look at the squad that they have, they showed on the trials that their youth is probably the best in the NRL. Not even probably. I think that you'd be hard-pressed not to say they've got the best youth in the NRL.
Couldn't put them outside of the top 3.
No way. Where's your head at with Penrith?
Yeah, I think they will be a top 2 team. I think at worst they could finish 4th. I think that they will. I think they'll be an interesting side as far as you got to remember they've been to 2 grand finals in a row. It takes a lot out of the tank, especially after winning it last year, to come back from where they did. So, sort of similar to what they did this year. I wouldn't be surprised if you see this Panthers side just keep their head above water until finals time.
Yep.
For me, they're going to be in the top 4. I know that. It's all about just tapering at the right end of the season, which is going to be their biggest challenge. But I would argue that they handled it last year better than possibly anyone ever has before, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I look at this Panthers side. This is going to sound absolutely backwards and almost stupid to an extent. But in my opinion, I'd almost be aiming not to win the minor premiership. And it sounds crazy. Like, are you serious? But I just think that 3 grand finals in a row after you win, you go and win the minor premierships the year before. Then obviously this year they didn't, and it did better. I remember at the start of last year, I said, I actually want the Panthers to be like that because it's so hard to be redlining the whole season and go through and win it with especially with how competitive that top four is and how on any day one of those four sides can beat each other. So don't get me wrong. Look, if they just kill it and win the minor premiership, fair enough. But I just think with how brutal the game is and how big and strong the guys are getting to go that far. I mean, all we got to do is look at Melbourne last year. Break all of these records. Win the minor premiership, what was it, like 4 weeks out or something? 3 weeks out?
Yep.
You could almost guarantee it like 6 weeks out. They get to their prelim game and they absolutely splutter. Like they don't even play close to the Storm they can. You look at the Rabbitohs, who a period there, we're nearly going to drop out of the 8.
Well, they conceded 50 points, Matt, twice last year.
Twice,
which no team's ever won a premiership off the back of that. They came within 4 points of winning it.
Within an intercept pass.
Yeah. And I mean, Matt, you could talk more about it. I think they got beat by 50 against Penrith the first time.
Yep.
Then they got beat by 20 the second time. Then they got beat by 4 off an intercept the third time.
Yep.
Tapering is the key to winning premierships.
Yeah, especially, I just think that the game is so brutal now that you can't afford to just be. Maybe I'm reading into it too much, but I feel like back in the day you could kind of just not get away with it, but it just wasn't as brutal. The players weren't as big, weren't as strong. Their training load wasn't anywhere near as heavy as it is now. Like their training loads now are super, super heavy. And so when I look at this Panthers side, I say I wouldn't mind if they just float between first, second, third, fourth, up and down, and then save that real push for the final series. Because if they're in with it, basically they want to get a second crack at the cherry. Like.
Yep.
In the final series, if they can just get in that top 4, it's almost within reason. It's almost as good as a minor premiership.
Yeah, the only thing that matters for me, whether you're 1 or 2 or 3rd and 4th, is where you have to go and play that first week. If you're going to Melbourne, that sucks.
Yeah.
But outside of that, even though that is a big factor, I think Penrith, Roosters and Melbourne, I think they will all be in a very similar boat where they'll be happy just to be in the 4, just to keep it all together. The other thing that Penrith have to their advantage is that most teams, when they win a premiership, they have to go to England in their pre-season for a World Club Challenge. They don't have to do that. They haven't had to deal with a Nines tournament or anything like that. They played one trial, which they put very few guys out. Yes, they got slapped, but they won't care about that in the slightest. Their test is going to be getting through the Origin series, injury-free, and then hitting finals. But, I mean, they lost both their halves at the end of Origin last year for 5 weeks or whatever it was. That's the other thing about Penrith. I mean, they won that comp last year, incredible finals run. They were nowhere near their best, in my opinion. Defensively, they were, but in attack, that was probably I would argue it's probably their worst 6 weeks of attack over the last 2 years.
Easy. Their attack was very pedestrian and very average compared to, relatively speaking, to some of their... In 2020, some of their attack was like, what is happening? Like, they are unstoppable. It was their defence that was just outrageous. Like, it was honestly incredible. So, yeah, for the Panthers, I see the bracket that they will land in obviously is 1 to 4. I think don't even think about the minor premiership. Just think about preparing for that finals push. Now, don't get me wrong. You don't want to get into a situation where, it doesn't matter, finals footy, and you start creating bad habits and excusing things that you wouldn't have excused before, not meeting the standards that you expect. But yeah, I just think that minor premiership, it's almost becoming a bit irrelevant.
It is irrelevant for me.
It's just like, what's the point? Does anyone really care about the minor premiership? What do they win? Maybe $100,000 or something? $100,000 to an NRL club.
To the Panthers, that's one pokey.
That's like literally one pokey, maybe.
Yeah.
And so I do believe that in a side discussion that the minor premiership needs to hold more weight, needs to be more advantageous, because at the moment it's kind of like, look, just get top 4. Just get top 4.
I think the other thing about the Panthers is that they will be bringing in a couple of new guys into this side. Isaac Tago, he'll be at left centre. I think by the end of the season, he's going to be an absolute gun, but it's going to take time for them to work on that left edge. I also think that your boy, Talon May, I'm not expecting him to be named tomorrow, but I think as soon as he gets a sniff on that right wing, he ain't giving that jersey back.
So who are you thinking gets that wing spot?
Going off the trials, I think it'll be Robert Jennings, to be honest with you.
Really?
Well, I mean, their last trial, they kept Taylor May on the bench. They didn't play him for big minutes. They played Staines at fullback. They left Jennings on the right wing for a long time. I probably think it will be him. He would have been my third choice guy 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not hiding away from that. But I've got a feeling it will be him.
Yeah,
I think Taylor May's next man up. And
I was surprised that but the thing is, like, Taylor May came on and killed it.
Kills it every time he plays.
Yeah, so, like, it's really, like, you know, maybe they're just trying to gate his progression, like not put him in too soon. But I think he's fucking good.
Yeah, I will say this about May. He has played the vast majority of his footy over the last few years at left wing.
Yep.
So he obviously can't play left wing. So maybe they're looking to push him through in reserve grade, just getting used to playing on the right side. But personally, I think he's too talented to leave out of this team.
Mate, I honestly, he's a smoky for, if he hasn't played 4 games already, for me, he's smoky for rookie of the year.
I think he's only played the 1. So, and I think that Tago on the other side, he's played 4 games, so he's out of the running.
Yep.
If he'd played 3, I reckon you'd be watching these two almost go head to head for
100%.
I think they're going to explode this season.
Yeah,
So by the end of the year, they'll be a lot better than what they will be in round 1
sure.
too, Penrith.
If I'm you know, if you like to rookie watch, Talon May for me is definitely one of the favourites to win Rookie of the Year. He's special, man. He honestly, it sounds crazy. He reminds me of Brian To'o.
That's what he is.
Strong as fuck, good finisher. So, you know, that backline just goes from strength to strength. Think of a backline. Brian To'o, Tago, Crichton, May. That's a scary, scary backline. Then Edwards at the back of the fullback.
Yeah. And I mean, we say, and Edwards. I mean, Edwards still a top 6 fullback in this game. He might not have the highlights, say whatever you want. He's performed on the biggest stages time and time again. And
if you go and look at his stats, towards the end of last season, he was actually getting close to top tier statistically. Like, he just wasn't getting the highlights, which is fine. It's perfect for Penrith. Perfect for Penrith.
And you just have a look at their depth, the guys that aren't going to be in this side. Eisenhuth, Jermaine Hopgood. I mean, Mitch Kenny's not going to be in the side. There's so many. They are covered in every single position. If you see Dylan Edwards go down, Stephen Crichton jumps into fullback. Yep. I don't know who I'd rather play at fullback, to be honest with you.
I actually think Stephen Crichton's, that's his position, fullback.
Yeah. But you can't possibly move Dylan out of there at the same time.
I just think that Crichton is good enough at centre. Well, not good enough. He's fucking great centre.
Yeah.
That you can afford to be like, look, we'll play at centre. Edwards offers so much fullback.
But it is scary when you lose your first choice fullback, and I don't know if you say you get better, but you become different, and different is scary sometimes.
Yeah,
for sure. Crichton is terrifying there.
Absolutely. So, yeah, another good year for the Panthers for sure. They got everything they need. I will say, though, game 1, without Cleary, I'm going to pick a Manly to get the win.
Yeah. It's at Penrith, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. It's a bit of a coin toss for me.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'll probably lean towards Manly. I think that we'll probably get the shit beaten out of us if we don't tip Manly just quite on Thursday night.
Thursday night. Actually, you know what? I'm picking Penrith just to piss them off. I'm going to go in there with a fucking...
Your Panthers 13 plus shirt? Or
Panthers 13. No, I would never be caught dead wearing another club's shirt. That's right. I forgot to say. Thursday night, Bloke's first ever live show. It'll be with Hello Sport. The Guru will also be there having a few beers with his mates, so come down, shake our hands, say hello. But it'll be a live show from 6:30 at DY Hotel. It is first in, best dressed. There's no tickets. I didn't want to charge for this and make it so that only people that had the spare coin could get in. It is first in, best dressed, and it is completely free. We're putting on this entire event that costs a lot of money just quietly. Completely free. Completely free because I want everyone to enjoy it. So get down to DY Hotel, celebrate our first ever live event. It's also a celebration of the podcast. Been around for so many years now that the first ever, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to meet everyone. DY Hotel, 6:30 p.m. is when we start. So you probably want to get there quite a bit earlier so that you can get a spot. I mean, I hope it's packed. It's like 2 people there. Fuck. Oh, well, you win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose some. You know what? At one stage, Dave Chappelle was performing in front of fucking no one. So, and to be honest, I'm nowhere near Dave Chappelle. So if he was okay with it, I should be okay with it.
Just quietly, if you haven't been there too, the DY Hotel,
great.
Quite the venue.
It is fucking great. The photo shoot we did was at DY Hotel. It is great. Heaps of big screens everywhere.
It was hard to leave.
It was hard to leave. Hard not to get on the beers. Anyway, so get down. 6:30 p.m. is when we start with Hello Sport, and we'll go basically till kickoff. We'll stop. We might do a Q&A after, or we might just walk around and just mingle. But 6:30, cannot wait. We'll also have Bloke merch there, and also the Hello Sport will have their Manly 13 plus jumpers there. But now on to Manly. Speaking of Manly, I think they're looking good. But I will not be convinced of Manly until round. You talk. Well, what's your thoughts on Manly?
Yeah, I think I can finish this sentence for you. I think they need to be able to overcome these top 4 sides. And the Hello Sports boys joke about it, under bright lights they need to perform. All jokes aside, I think that is genuinely where the Manly Seagulls are at. I know they're going to be in the top 8, whether they're 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, wherever it might be, I don't care. They can win it from 8th if they bring their A game in finals time. So, yeah, Manly, they'll be right up there with the very best of them. Just comes to performing on those big stages, which their big players have done time and time again in the Origin arena for Australia, et cetera, so they can do it.
Yep.
Just a matter of seeing it comes finals times. Which clash are you looking for?
Well, I'm looking for the first time they play one of those top 4 sides to see how they go. So they play Rabbitohs round 8.
So I've got it in front of me. They go Penrith, Roosters, Bulldogs, Raiders, Knights.
So round 2 is Roosters?
Round 2 is Roosters.
But Penrith I'm not looking at because it doesn't have Cleary.
Yep.
So Roosters, and then what was the Rabbitohs is round 8.
Yeah, then it's Bulldogs, Raiders, Knights, Titans, Sharks, and then round 8 is the Rabbitohs.
So
where's
basically,
Melbourne?
I think, when's Melbourne actually?
Not till round 12.
So I think that's by round 12 is when you'll have a good idea of how the Manly realistically last year they started really poor, came on really well at the end there. So, but I believe by the time they play Storm, even if they don't win those games, as long as it's competitive, as long as it's 24-12 or something along those lines, I think we can say they're competitive for the premiership.
Yeah, I think the round 12 game will be your indicator. You've got to remember Olakau'atu and Schuster, they're going to be out for the first few weeks. That's a heap of punch to lose on those 2 edges. Those 2 are so important. I know we all talk Turbo, DCE, Garrick Saab. Those 2 are so important to this side. It's not even funny. So they're going to leave a decent hole in the first few weeks. I assume they'll both be back by round 4 or 5, could even be earlier from what I'm hearing. So by round 12 against Melbourne, Matty, is that one in Melbourne or is it at Brookie?
It's in Melbourne, and
Perfect.
it's the last week before Origin selection.
Okay, that's what we want.
That's
Brilliant.
a big game, and I think it just give you a good indicator of where does this Manly roster really sit. And there is absolutely no denying. There was a period there where I thought, when they lost, I think to Penrith 20-12, and then Storm, they lost to them as well. I was like, no, I think they're competitive. They're probably where they should be. They're not a top 4 side yet at that time. But I think it did confirm everyone's biggest fears. And Girdler was the first one to say it. I wouldn't consider them flat track bullies for me. The term doesn't really make sense to me. Well, not doesn't make sense. I just don't like rolling with it just because they're such an aggressive if you get beaten by a team that is above you on the ladder by substantial, let's say you get beaten 20-6 by the Panthers and you're 5th and they're 1st, you would argue, well, is that not probably where they should be? But I understand that the idea that they play the best teams and they didn't get close to them. So they're not the premiership threat that we thought they were last year. Yep. So Girdler was right. Regardless, he was right that they weren't the premiership threat we thought they were. Whereas this year, with more experience, because we have to remember a lot of Schuster, Olakau'atu, even Harper, Parker, Saab, Garrick, these are all relatively young players. This is not an old...
You didn't know them 2 years ago.
100%, absolutely. So I think their biggest... Any team with Tom Trbojevic and DCE 7 and 4 and at 6 can challenge into that top 4 on the ladder.
How many games does Turbo have to play to win a Dally M?
Oh, fuck. 15? I
was listening to About Even during the week. Michael Pride did a little section where he went through all the guys, and go and have a listen to Michael talk about this on About Even to get it exactly right. But he went through all the guys that have had stellar seasons, the top 7 stellar seasons. So we're talking, Hayne, we're talking Barber, we're talking Lockie 06, Mick Morgan, all these sort of guys. And when they had those stellar seasons, what happened the year after? And I think very few of them were in the top 10 for the Dally M the year after.
Wow.
Turbo, obviously, he's a different beast, but we would have said that about those guys as well. So something to consider there. I just think the modern rules and everything are so suited to Tom Trbojevic. It's not even funny though.
I think the argument, and this is not to say that those other players weren't the same as Tom. There might be some that weren't. Like, for example, a Hayne, he did have a tendency to go good year, okay year, good year. And also he would float in and out of games. Don't get me wrong, on his day, one of the greatest players we've seen. The difference I feel with Tommy is that he forces his way into a game just by taking hit-ups. So unless he's injured, he's going to find a way to break you. Now, are you the Melbourne Storm that can withhold it, or are you the Roosters or the top tier teams? You know, that's the thing, that there may be teams that are lower than Manly that try to contain Turbo, but they don't have the cattle to do so. And that's why I don't think that he's going to have a quiet year. I think that he forces his involvement in the game so much that he's going to break you eventually. He's going to... some of his tries were one-off hit-ups off the ruck. And so if he's always there ready to do that, you are going to be loose at marker. You are going to be loose at A, and you're going to be loose at B and even C. So I personally... And on top of all of that, I also believe that he hasn't had like a full year of footy, really, maybe outside of one. So I don't think fatigue is going to be an issue for him. So I think he's going to have a big year again. Is it going to be as good as last year? Maybe not, but I think he's going to have a big year.
If it's not as good as last year, that's not an insult.
Yeah, not at all.
And what stood out for me last year, and exactly what you just said, my favourite thing about Turbo last year, and it'll sound weird, but how selfish he was, because he needed to be at times.
Yeah.
If he saw that A, B or C was scattered, he'd push front rowers out of the way. I need to have the ball on this play.
Absolutely.
And that's so dangerous for every other team in this competition, that's his mindset. I know he's a nice guy, but having that mindset has just turned him into a different prospect.
Well, he's realised, you know, I think Manly would have spoken internally. I think DC would have spoken internally. Guys, when he wants it, he gets it. Yep. He's not like a front rower where you're like, bro, stop ruining plays by taking one off hit-ups because you want the ball. He's a guy that you need to give the ball as much as possible.
There was a try that he scored last year that was a standout for me, and it probably wasn't the one on highlight reels, but Manly made a break down the left edge. I want to say they were playing Canterbury, and they went down the left edge, and he was in support. The guy dummied and got tackled by the fullback, and he ran through the play the ball. Then he ran back around, and he got it on the same tackle and just went oonce and scored. Just that mindset of just... There's 11 other guys that could get the football here, but I need to have the ball in my hand right now because they're on the back foot. It's terrifying.
Well, you know what it's like? It's why Teddy, outside of the first 6 months of the Roosters, hasn't had a quiet year. He hasn't had a bad year. You know why? Because he's constantly in the game. You know, he's taken 25 to 30 hit-ups, or not hit-ups, but runs every single game. So he forces... You're going to step up eventually. You're going to miss a tackle. You're going to fall off. You're going to give him a try assist. And Tom Trbojevic is of that similar ilk. Look, I think it's going to be a good year for Manly. I think that anything less than a premiership threat is a disappointment. Anything less than... I agree with your sentiment of they can be top 8 and that's all that matters for them because they have such an ability to just go on these runs. I still probably would have them in my top 4 though. I think they should be a top 4 team. Thoughts?
Yeah, look, I've got Penrith, Roosters, Melbourne. I'm confident they're all going to be top 4. That last spot, Parramatta, Manly, Cronulla at a stretch. I probably think South Sydney... Yeah, anyway, we'll get to South when we get to them. I think Manly can be a top 4 team. I don't think they'll be a top 3 team.
Okay. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that. I agree. Like, I know we've got certain brackets. If I was being, like, if we could be more accurate, I would actually say 4th to 8th is where I would place them in the sense of, like, they'll probably finish 4th, but I can see them having periods where they slump off a bit. You know, maybe during Origin they struggle a little bit, then they come back out.
Well, that's going to be the thing. They're going to be missing these 2 edge back rowers for the first 5 to 6 weeks. They're going to get them back for 5 to 6 weeks. Then they're going to go into the Origin arena. They're going to lose, obviously, a couple of... nearly all their big stars. DCE, both Trbojeviches. That's if anyone else doesn't sneak their way. Schuster could be there.
He was tipped in to make that New South Wales squad recently.
There's a couple of other guys that could potentially end up there, but I would never say that they can't win a competition this year. No way, you can't rule them out of it, but it's just about owning those big stages, and this is where Tom and Jake can take their game to that next level, which it's not a matter of is that going to happen, it's a matter of when is it going to happen for me, and if it's this year, I won't be shocked in the slightest.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think great year for Manly. I'd probably put them around that 4th position, 4th, 5th, 6th. I think if they finish 8th, even though it's still good for them, that's still a disappointing year.
I think so.
I think 7th, 8th for them, disappointing year. I think 4th, 5th, 6th, good year. Above 4th, great year.
If they finish 4th this year, let's say they finish 4th, they get into finals and they go out in straight sets, I mean, there's going to be a bit of pressure on Manly, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
They're going to, respectfully, and this is respectfully to both clubs, if they go out in straight sets this year, they start to look a little bit Parramatta-y to me. Are they going to be able to go to that next step or not? It's a big year for both of those clubs for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the difference, I think it's actually probably more concerning for Manly due to the fact that DC and Foran are 30, 31 or 32, around that age, whereas Moses, Gutho, Reid Marnie's obviously leaving, Dylan Brown, they're like, Moses I think is 26, Gutho's 26, Brown is 21, 22. So they've still got quite a bit of time in saying that they are losing quite a bit of their roster. But we'll get to Para when we get in a few. Yeah, look, I wouldn't, if they make top four and bounce out in straight sets, I wouldn't say it's pressure signs yet, because we have to remember that this roster, 12, 16 months ago was considered a bottom tier roster without Tom Trbojevic, obviously. Whereas I feel like, Desi has turned this roster of a bunch of players that were, very fringe first graders into high quality first graders. Now, hopefully they can get Nasi Fainu back, because that's the forgotten man. Hopefully he gets cleared, because him back at 9.
If he gets cleared,
holy, that changes
everything.
Because Croker has been Croker's one of my most improved players of last season, but Fainu is an out and out good hooker.
Yeah, Kroger's done incredibly well, but he just doesn't have the upside that Fainu does, and that's probably what they need at the moment. Mate, the scary thing about Fainu is that when he was playing, it was the old rules. He is so much more suited to the modern game. It's not even funny. Like, Manly let go of Api Kurosau because they had this guy. Yeah. Look how well Api's done over the last 2 years at Penrith. Nace could be anything if he returns.
Mate, totally agree. When it comes to rookies, obviously Cooler. He's actually signed till 2024, so that's great by Manly. So smart. Another guy that I think we should watch is KO Weeks.
Yeah.
But I think Cooler could challenge for Rookie of the Year. KO Weeks also, he was really impressive to me. I
think it was DCE came out and said the other day that he was asked about Cooler for round 1, and he sort of said, look, it's going to take a lot for him to knock one of the other guys out of the starting team. Fair enough. Which personally I like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but I tell you what, it's going to get the very best out of the other two centres, knowing that they've got a Ferrari waiting behind them, and if they, either of them could only be an injury, a suspension, or a couple of bad reads away from giving this kid a shot, and you don't want to give him a shot.
No way. And also, the fact that they're even talking about, like, it's going to take a lot, it means that there is pressure there, and it exists now. Yep. The pressure that probably wasn't there last year for them is right there, and his name is Cooler, which is good, because, maybe we have to remember Harper and Parker were fantastic during the season. They were fantastic for Manly. So good. So if it takes their game to a new level, then that's even better for Manly.
And I mean, mate, it was this time last year we would have been sitting here saying Curtis Sirenen's going to be on one edge, Andrew Davies going to be on the other. They both get injured. All of a sudden, you got these two second rowers that could play Origin now.
Yep.
Sirenen never even got a look in it. He's not there anymore.
Yeah, we got
because these two. So. Mate, if you're in this side and there's good guys underneath you don't want to give them a sniff, because you might not get your jersey back.
No, absolutely. So I think it's very promising signs for Manly. Very promising signs.
I mean, mate, even Georgie Tafua.
I know.
It's like he's fallen off the side of the earth.
I know. It's crazy. It's just insane. And they probably won't re-sign him either.
It's unbelievable.
Unless he takes massive pay cut, which he's probably earned. Yeah. It was only 2 years ago we were watching highlights of Tafua absolutely wreck Munster. Poor bloke.
That went worldwide.
Yeah. Shows you how, Manly, I just cannot believe that, 3 years we were sitting there hearing reports of, their facilities are terrible, their roster needs a complete explosion, will Tommy ever get his, back on the field, to, holy shit, they might have the best juniors or reserve grade in the comp.
I was thinking the other day.
As in one of,
yeah. Sorry. Do you remember the first 5 weeks last year where they looked like a park footy side? Or there was all this pressure on Des and everything. Can you imagine if Turbo, instead of that being a 4-week injury, if that was a 10-week injury? I mean, if it kept going the way it was,
they would have moved him on.
They would have moved him on, and they would have been up shit creek.
Yep.
Thank God he came back when imagine if he was out for the year, and we still hadn't untapped what Tom Trbojevic has. Desi would be gone. I reckon a few of the others would be looking around.
I reckon Desi and DC would have been gone.
I reckon Curtis Irinen would still be there.
Yeah.
I don't reckon they would have got the best out of these young kids that they had. Like, the side would look completely different off the back of that hamstring healing a few weeks.
And like DC ended up turning his season around.
Yep.
He played really well last year as well. And what's interesting about that as well is they were actually someone like was asking Desi Hazard, do you need to bring in someone to help you? And you could tell Desi was like, are you serious? I actually had a discussion, and it was actually
not my first rodeo.
Yeah, like, bro. I was actually at a discussion online yesterday, and this was a good discussion, just talking about Desi's role and what happened at the Doggies. And I'm of the mind that although Desi made mistakes, there is no doubt that he absolutely, I feel it is like shockingly clear now, he was not the problem at the Bulldogs. I feel like he has proven, when he went to Manly were lower on the table than the Bulldogs. Then he took Manly to obviously a premiership threat now. We're having a discussion, though, about basically how good of a coach Desi is. And going back over it, he's actually, and I have to recheck this, but I think he's the most successful coach out of Bellamy and Robinson over the last 15 years.
He would be. He's made, 4 or 5 grand finals?
5 grand finals, won 2 of them. He's only missed the finals in 17 seasons 3 times. And one of them was at Doggies and then 2, I think, at Manly.
Yeah. I know people want to hold a lot against Desi because of what happened at Canterbury, but just logically, I'm sorry, he is not the only guy in the room signing these contracts.
It's not his responsibility to balance
it. It's not like, I'm sorry, I know Canterbury like to put their head in the sand and say, nope, not our fault. But kind of is. It's kind of your role to.
Like, what I don't get is like, I understand. If your argument is Desi shouldn't have gone to those players and said this contract, blah, blah, fair enough. Also, if your argument is he shouldn't have moved on XXX player, fair enough. I think Desi has shown evidence that even if he did move on those players that you like, he's shown evidence he can rebuild clubs and develop other players. But it is not his. It is the responsibility. It is the role of the CEO and the CFO when Desi comes to them, if it is Desi, and says, like, to be honest, a coach should not be handling contracts. Like, that is crazy. He should be saying, like, this is who I want to target. Right? But if Desi goes to him and says, this is a contract we want to offer, it is the job of the chief financial officer and the CEO and go, we cannot afford that. Look at the salary cap here. Look at what this is going to do to us in 3 or 4 years. We're going to have to move this player on. If that CEO and CFO clear those contracts, then that's on them. Like that. Anyway.
Was Desi going to the CFO and asking who should I pick in the halves this week?
Yeah, it's
play your role.
Yeah, that's exactly. And someone said like, so when Desi wins, it's his fault. But when the club happens, it's not his fault. I said it's 2 different things. The club, if they're approving contracts that shouldn't have been approved, then that is the staff's fault. But if he loses on the field, that is Desi's fault. The comparison is when Desi wins on the field, that's his fault. When Desi loses on the field, that's his fault. All that other stuff that needs approval from the head office, you got to bear responsibility for that. And that is not even to mention all the infighting that we had heard about between the board and everything. Anyway, don't want to get sidetracked with that. I think Desi has proven, though, he is a really, really good coach.
Without a doubt.
Like, without a doubt. To go back and do what he did when before he left, it was talking about didn't have enough resources. The owners wanted to sell the place, so good signs for Manly. Now, on to the Sharkies. I know it was trials, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing.
I was very hesitant. You've been trying to convince me for 6 months now about Nicho Hynes at 7.
Yeah.
I'm harder than a cat's head for Nicho Hynes playing 7 now. Mate, I am very keen on him.
I've been on the Sharkies for a while now. Eh? Very much so. So are you in? I'm
conceding.
You're conceding.
Yeah, I was never totally anti them. I just thought they'd struggle to score points. I thought that their defensive attitude they've signed would get them to a finals berth. But, I said a few weeks ago that I think they're the only team I can see coming from outside the 8 to making the top 4. Mate, I look at them and I look at their side. During Origin, who are they going to lose?
It's a really good point.
They're not going to lose anyone. I mean, I don't know what the betting market's looking like for them to be a top 4 side, but I think they've got the potential too because they're going to be the one side that isn't going to miss a heap of troops during Origin. It's a big 6-week advantage to keep your squad together during that time. I'm confident they'll be a top 8 team. I've got them probably 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th at worst, I think. Obviously injuries come into play as they will for every single side, but yeah, I'm excited about the Sharkies, mate. Yeah, you've definitely turned me on them. No doubt
Mate,
about that.
I am super excited about the Sharkies. I think...
Are they a premiership threat?
Nah, not yet. Not yet. Because, like, I look at, say, Fafita obviously on his last year, Moylan, maybe on his last year, who knows? He could come out and absolutely kill it. Imagine the amount of money. What's crazy about the Sharks? Insane. Imagine the amount of money they're still going to have next year in the cap.
Yeah, it's scary.
Like, Fafita is on, I think, he's on 800K, easy.
Yep.
Then you've got Moylan, who I assume is on at least 700K, surely.
Yep.
Again, we don't know their amounts, but I'd assume. Those two come off contracts. They can literally go into the market for a big buy.
And, I hope I'm really wrong, but, Wade Graham, there's going to be a bit of money sitting there, and I hope that he's able to get through the season. But
it's another thing. Like they might have over $1 million to spend next year.
They might have over $1 million to spend, and they've got a really good hooker in Blake Brayley, and they might have the best young hooker we haven't seen yet in Jaden Berrell as well. So even those two just fighting for each other for that spot, that'll bring out the best in those guys. Will Kennedy, I said probably 6 weeks ago that I thought he was better than KP last year, and I stand by it, to be honest with you. I think he's in for another big season. I look at their backline. Ikavalu's not going to make the side for me, and he looked like a world beater at the Chooks last year. There's a reason why Fitzy's brought him over. Did you watch the trial the other day with Franklin Pele?
Yes,
I was going to crack my TV screen. It was unbelievable.
Mate, if he can do that week in, week out, wow. They got a game changer in a front row that's a big boy, can lift the boys. And they did all that without Cam McInnes. Yeah,
without Cam McInnes, without Sivitalakai, there's so much talent to go back into this side.
I'll just point out on Ikavalu, Ronaldo Mulatalo and Ikavalu both came out and said they're willing to play centre this year. So
and we have to remember, Mulatalo got selected for Queensland. Like, he is a high quality winger.
Yeah, well, he finished that trial the other day playing centre, so that might be an interesting little one there. I mean, if he ends up at centre, you got to fit Connor Tracy in there, who he might be a little bit underrated, but tell me he's not a top 5 utility in rugby league. He can.
Guess what's crazy? They still have Metcalf sitting on the bench. Their roster, I don't want to make excuses for the Sharkies over the last few years because they have underperformed, but when you look at what their cap has copped, they got sanctions from the issues that happened with Flanagan. They moved on Josh Morris, thinking that they had Bronson Sherry, and then Sherry obviously paused. You know what I mean? Like
everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong.
Like if they had waited a week, they would have kept Josh Morris, who was actually statistically still playing some we saw him go to the Roosters and play great footy. I'm really liking the Sharkies.
And I know Fafita and Aiden Tolman are getting older, but the experience they bring and what they can bring to Hamlin ULA, I thought Royce Hunt,
he was fantastic,
incredible the other day. Poor old Tavita tried to punch him 2 plays later. He steps 2 and carries 4 over and scores. I love everything about Royce. He's another guy that's come the hard way. People forget he debuted for the Raiders 5 years ago.
Crazy.
Then just fell into the wilderness for a couple of years of cup footy. He's come back. He looks great. As you said, Cam McInnes still got to go into this side. I thought Dale Finucane, his game the other day was sensational as well. He had so many more touches of the pill than I thought he would.
Well, I look at a guy like Dale, and I think you can tell that physically he's not as damaging as he used to be, and that's only to be expected as you get a bit older. But what he brings, as you said, in touches, in direction, in telling the boys, we need to get here, do this, don't do that, it is invaluable.
He doesn't need to be as physical as he used to be.
No way. He just needs to get through a bunch of work and guide the forward pack around the park.
I read somewhere the other day that when they're in the gym, there's a little pot of Finucane, McInnes and Wade Graham that are together, training together. Could you imagine?
Oh, wow.
The intensity. I believe the Melbourne Storm, Dale's nickname down there was Chaos, which you might know more than me, but it's like a training technique where you're almost going too hard for your own good, from what I've gathered.
If your name's Chaos at one of the hardest training fucking clubs in the comp,
insane,
you've got problems. You're almost sick in the head.
Serious issues.
And what's crazy is that's not even including McInnes, who also goes too hard for his own good.
Yeah.
Now, if we have to be critical, the concern would be, and I, with all my heart, hope this doesn't happen. Please don't ever think that. But you've got Finucane, Graham and McInnes who could be susceptible to injuries. That's just the truth of the matter.
And Moiser.
And Matty Moylan and Fafita.
Yep.
Now, the concern could be if Finucane struggles with injury and struggles to get on the field, if McInnes, who we have already seen, is going to miss 4 weeks, if Wade Graham, who he's out for 6 to 12 weeks or something like that, a substantial period, if Matty Moylan also struggles, then, nearly $2 million of your cap isn't playing week in, week out. That's my only concern, right? Everything else for me is like Cronulla Sharks in the next 24 months could be a top 4 side. Not this season, but next season. Everything else to me, but this is the only concern that I have. And
look, this concern is fair, but unless you are one of the top 4 teams, I think every team has this same concern.
Yep, for sure.
Obviously, they have guys that are more, I don't know if the word is injury
further
prone
along in their careers is the way I'd say.
Yeah, and guys that have, a lot of those guys you just mentioned, they've got injury concerns because they put their fucking head where you wouldn't put your foot.
Yep.
Like, that's the sort of guys you're buying. I still do think that, if all those guys get injured, I still think this Cronulla Sharks side, the mindset they'll get just from having those guys around will be huge. But, that's the reality of the NRL. You're always going to have injuries. Things are always going to go wrong. Moylan's starting 5'8", and it worries me that he hasn't played a trial yet, if I'm completely honest.
I messaged you and I said, it's very bizarre that they're so concerned about Moylan because the report was he wasn't injured. The report was that basically they just didn't want to risk putting him on. And then I was like, far out. Like, are we that concerned? How's he going to get through a year? Now, look, could be the fact that they've absolutely nailed this prediction. Moiser has played heaps of footy. He doesn't need to do a trial and risk himself, and he could come out and absolutely kill it. But to be honest, Trindle, he's a 6, man. And I really liked him in that 6 role. So he only misses 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah.
And then he's back ready to go. I thought the partnership of Hines-Trindle that's good enough for me. That was good enough for me.
Well, that's the beauty of it, mate. If as much as it's more unlikely for Trindle to get injured, if one of them does, to be able to bring Moiser in, they have got really good depth there.
What I'm saying is like you got Moylan that will start.
Yep.
But if Moylan struggles to play, bringing in Trindle, that's still a top 6 side for me potentially.
And if it gets any worse, you've got Metcalf there still.
That's so true, and you've got Connor Tracy.
Yeah, well, I'd probably have Tracy before Metcalf, to be honest with you. So there's a bit going on there. There's a lot of depth there, mate.
But just before we get off the Moylan thing, now on the flip side of that, imagine we see vintage Moylan.
Yeah.
Where they could go then.
Yeah, look, if you listen to my podcast, you know my thoughts on Matty Moylan. I'm a huge fan. I just think there's not many guys in rugby league that are born with his vision. He's just got something that other blokes don't have, but we just don't see it enough. I know he's a very laid-back character and people like to get stuck into him about that, but he's got vision and a skill set that not many guys have in rugby league. Mate, watching him the early days of the Panthers, and I'll be very interested to hear you say, I thought Lockyer. The timing and the way that he would just scan across the field and pick blokes up and then go around the back of them. And I don't know, he's just got something about him, Moiser, and I think it's great that he's not the guy anymore.
Yeah.
Like, as much as they had Sean Johnson and stuff, all the eyes are on Nicho Hynes. Not many people are talking about Moiser, which they normally are, bagging him and whatnot. So I'm excited to see how he goes. And there is the pressure now that Braden Trindle is a first grader. He's not a kid coming through. He's a first grader now. So there is a bit of pressure on Moiser there, which I think will be good for him. I think we're at the point with Moiser too where it's now or never.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Trindle for me looks so much more comfortable in that 6 jersey. He looked great. I really liked his performance in the trials.
Speaking of looking great, Nakora.
I was going to say, just get to that. He is my Smokey for Dally M back row of the year.
Yeah, I back it.
Smokey, remember, guys, remember what a Smokey means. It means it's a long shot.
Sure thing, back him in.
Yeah, it's a sure thing. Put your house on it. But from what I've seen, how he's playing, he's off contract. We all know that gives extra motivation. He's looking. And also, on top of that, Nicho Hynes already seems to be building a partnership with him.
I heard Nicho Hynes in an interview about 5 weeks ago, so this is before trials or anything, say who's impressed you most, and that was the first name he said, Britt Nakora. So I know it's a small thing, but there was 30 blokes for him to choose there, including Dale Finucane and Andrew Fafita. Like, there's a lot of really talented guys on that side. For him to pick Britt Nakora and say that, and then have the connection they did in that trial. He scored that one trial, which was really good, but if you watch Nakora, he ran that same or similar line another 5 or 6 times. He was just going 100 miles an hour.
It's a nightmare line.
Yeah, and look, Canterbury left edge defence was an absolute shitstorm. Don't get me wrong, but you can see when guys are in sync with each other, and these two look like they're in sync with each other.
And Nakora played that same game in the All-Star, so it's not like it was just against a struggling Bulldogs side. Now I'm a big fan of Nakora, almost to the point where I've been a bit disappointed that he didn't kick on to be the player that we thought he could be in the last year or two. Now, injuries and everything the Sharks have gone through, different halves, pairings, all that kind of stuff.
But you do see this, guys explode. They find their way over the next 50 games and then they kick on again. So I'm really, mate, that Cronulla right edge, you go Hines, you go Nakora, you go Jesse Ramian, then Katoa or whichever one of the wingers will be there. But that Nakora and Ramian, that little 10 metres there, that's going to be lethal.
Yeah.
Those two are so hard to handle.
And Jesse is a guy that kind of going under the radar now. He burst onto the scene, talked about in Origin, went to the Knights, seemed to struggle under the coach Nathan Brown, comes back to the Sharks. Has he been as destructive as maybe his first year? Maybe not. But he also has been, he hasn't been poor either, in my opinion. And we know that, at the very least, we know what he can do. Yeah. He absolutely is still young enough to put on those performances. So
and I think Raymond is also one of those guys that he's still young. You have to bring him into the game.
For sure.
As a halfback, 5'8", you have to bring him into the game. And I thought that when he played with Sean Johnson, he always looked incredible. When SJ was injured or not there, that's where you could see Jesse Raymond getting a little bit lost. So I think it's just so many options for the halfback to work with there. Nico Hines, so I'm very excited about that. Cronulla Sharks right edge. I think they'll give a lot of left edge defences a lot of headaches this year.
Absolutely. So for us, basically prediction, mine would be 4 to 8. 4 being an incredible year.
Yep.
7th being a solid year. 6 being, good. 8 being a solid year. Anything outside the 8, I think I'd be extremely disappointed.
Yeah, I think they'll be disappointed if they miss the 8. Obviously, pending a heap of injuries, but even so, they'll be setting their aim on. I mean, it's probably unfair, but you look at what the Roosters went through last year. Craig Fitzgibbon's coming from that sort of a attitude and that sort of mindset, so he'll be expecting we play finals footy. That's who we are.
Absolutely. Now they're playing the Raiders. Now for this game, I probably am going to pick the Sharkies to get the W. It's close though.
Yeah, it's close. I'll be interested to see the exact team that the Canberra Raiders name first, and the Sharkies, to be fair. It's a big night for the Canberra Raiders. Back at
Sharkies,
home.
Is it Raiders at home?
Raiders at home.
Okay,
yeah.
Wow. I thought it was Sharkies at home because Sharkies were put first.
No, GIO, it's up.
Okay,
it's
wow,
down
that
there.
might change things.
Yeah,
Shit.
that's what I'd probably tip Canberra there.
I thought Sharkies at home because it was like in before this. Okay. Fuck, what a game. Shit, I can't wait for it. I'm unsure at the moment then. I'll have to keep thinking about it.
I just, from watching them in that trial, I thought the pack looked good. They looked strong. I mean, it's a trial, so I can't even remember if they won or lost, but I remember Manly.
They beat Manly.
They beat Manly.
By 2 points, I think.
Yeah. Manly scored 2 tries off drop balls and intercepts where the fastest guys on the field happened to get the ball. Canberra showed a lot of resilience. Canberra showed that they are the old Canberra. Well, they showed that they look like the old Canberra Raiders again, where they just hang in, they get it done. I thought Jack looked sensational. I think he'll take a lot of confidence out of that. I think they'll be super keen. Bringing Kotrick back into the fold, Adam Elliott walking in. I just think... And as much as the halfback's injured, I'm so high on this Schneider kid. I just think he's going to bring a new little bounce to their step.
Yeah, I can see that.
The Cronulla Sharks, I thought they looked great in that trial. Don't get me wrong. We've just spoke about how good they look. The Canterbury team did look awful.
Yeah.
So I like Canberra. I assume Cronulla the favourites. I'm not sure, but I like Canberra in this game down there.
Now, the reports are coming out of Canberra that Chance Nickel Klukstad has won the fullback position. Now, it's only reports, so we don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think that is the correct call?
I think it's good to see one of their top 5 players playing his right position.
Yeah, no, it's bizarre.
I don't know
I never
what to-
understood why he was even under pressure. But
we've been talking about this for 5 weeks. We've absolutely copped it left, right, and centre. If I get sent that highlights package one more time, I'm away. But like we said, the last trial he was pretty quiet. No one spoke about Savage. Love Savage. He's going to be a star. Neither of us are pushing back on that in any way, shape, or form. Chance is a guy that's proven under the bright lights on the big stages. He will do a job for you. He will consistently do a job for you. Writing's on the wall for me.
Okay, so you reckon C&K gets it. Where do you put... Well, so Rapana is out for the first week. Does that give you a spot for Savage on the wing?
Yeah, I don't know. From what I've gathered, I think that Tomoko will be one wing. I think Semi will be the other centre, which worries me a little bit, but apparently he's going to be the right centre. Then you've got Kotrick would have to be on one wing. So, yeah, maybe he does get a spot. Who am I missing on the other winger? There's a heap of guys out in there. So, I mean, Sebastian Chris is seemingly, from what everyone I hear talk about the Raiders, it's like he's not there at the moment, which I thought he would be somewhere. Maybe he does get a gig out on the wing.
So you're telling me Croker you think is...
I don't think he's going to get picked.
Wow. That's huge, man. That is absolutely...
I'm pretty confident he's not going to get picked because I'm from what I've gathered, I think that you'll see the halfback goal kicking. So that would say to me that Jared Croker's not.
Holy.
And based on their last trial, he was the starting left centre against a reserve grade team the week before. Then he was jersey 130 or whatever the next week. And Tomoko played left centre. So,
wow. Well, it's crazy. So Croker has 2022, 2023, and then 2024 is a player option. How do you think they're going to navigate that?
Yeah, I know.
And before people jump down my throat and say, how could he possibly expect to play that last year out? He's not in the first grade side. We have to remember, he earned that contract. The club offered him that contract. They didn't offer it to him out of goodwill. They didn't offer it to him out of everything he did up until that point, earned the offer that they gave him. Now, if you can sit there and be like, yeah, but it's not good for the club, rah. You know what's not good for Croker is not getting paid hundreds of thousands of dollars that he earned. Now, you could say, is he playing as well as he used to? No, he's not. But is he turning up and doing his duties to the best of his ability right now? I would say there is never a doubt of Croker's commitment to it. So that is going to be... I remember we were talking about it. I was like, bro, I'm telling you, this could get ugly. I hope it doesn't.
You hope it doesn't. Good God, you hope it doesn't.
Oh, my God.
But...
if there's one bloke that deserves a good send-off, it's Jared Croker.
Yeah, and if there's one bloke that took the extra few $100,000 to sit in reserve grade, if he was my mate, I'd go, yeah, good on you.
Mate.
Fair cop.
I mean, he's he earned that contract. Remember, guys, he didn't sign himself. The offer was from the Raiders saying, we want to give you this contract because right now, this is how much we think you're worth going forward. Look, I hope... The problem is he still has this whole next season, and then another season. Yeah, hopefully they can come to look, best case, what I hope really is he fights his way back into the squad and he kills it again because he's only like 30 years old or something, 31.
It's credit to Canberra. I mean, Josh Hodgson has been in a similar spot the last few years. He looked like he was the Canberra Raiders. He got injured. Tom Starling came in and you sort of went, are they better with Starling? I mean, all of a sudden you now got these two guys. I think Jared Croker's going to give some young kids an opportunity there who are all weapons. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if in a year's time we're going, do we need Jared Croker in this side? Same as we sort of are now. It's credit to the Canberra Raiders how many young guys they've brought through and how talented they've been straight away. I look at Jamal Fogarty as well. He's got 3 years on that contract. I'm really high on this young kid, Schneider. It could be a similar... And it's great. It's good. I mean, if you've... As much as it sucks with these contracts and everything on paper, if you've got so many guys playing so well that some of your more experienced guys you can't fit into your team...
That's the thing. What's the comment? How do you go to Croker after everything he's done at the club and say, mate, can you please, what I'm hoping it doesn't get to that point where he fights his way back in and he plays exactly how we know he can. And I thought he played really good in that first trial, so I was surprised that he didn't even get a crack in the third trial. Really,
yeah.
That's why I am a bit concerned where their thinking is. Like, he didn't even get like, you're telling me that he couldn't start where Semi started, or Tomoko couldn't. So I think that shows a clear indication of the Raiders thinking. Now, let's say best case scenario, he fights his way back in, boom, perfect. What I'm hoping the worst case scenario is, and it doesn't go any lower than this, that they can come to an agreement of like, you retire now, you've got a job at the club and the coaching staff for the next, whatever years it is.
Yeah. I'm sure over the next 18 months or so, him and Ricky will get together for a beer, and it'll probably be a tough conversation, but...
They've probably already had, that's the thing, they've probably already had that conversation.
Yeah, they probably have, but like the situation is changing.
Well, I think they've already had it, because he started 2 guys, like rookies, in the trials. Like, he didn't even give Croker first crack. Usually the way it is like, you give your veterans like first crack, then if the youth comes on and kills it, you go, mate, like, I gave you first crack, you didn't really do much, going to give it to. Whereas, like, I think the Raiders have shown their hand a little bit here and said, look, we're going for youth here. But
at some point next year, there's going to have to be another conversation. I think when it comes to crunch time,
if he doesn't fight his way back in. But Croker's a fighter, man. He's a fighter.
Yeah, he's a goer.
Absolutely.
You just hope that his body allows him.
Yeah, for sure.
To do it.
Interesting. Jack Whiten actually has 2 years of player option, which is interesting.
That. Yeah. Big year for Canberra.
Big, massive year. It's a club defining year for Canberra.
Yeah.
Because what it's hard is, like, I can't put them in my top 6, but that roster is a top 6 roster. Easy. Like, they've got some of the best youth. I would say Manly, Panthers, and Raiders probably have the best youth right now.
Yep. In saying that, if we get to the end of the year and they're 5th or 6th, like, it's not going to bowl you over, because that's where they should.
That's where they should finish for sure.
Yeah.
But in saying that, with everything they've gone through, I would say that's a win.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All the drama, how close they got to the club just absolutely imploding. So I'm going to tentatively say 4th to 8th is where I see them landing, but I just don't know who I take out of the top 8 to put them in. So it doesn't make sense. I understand. Like, I can only have a certain amount of 8 sides, but I'm going to put them in from 4th to 8th, and I just want to see them play the first few rounds to see where they're at.
Yeah, I've got them 6th to 10th. I've got them. There's 2 teams that I've got penciled in for 8th spot, and I can't split them. They're one of them.
Yep.
We'll get to the other teams soon, but I think they'll be there and thereabouts. Like,
my bad. I thought we could only go 1 to 4, 4 to 8, 10 to 14.
Okay, right, okay. Yeah, well, if you made me say, are they going to be 4 to 8 or 8 to 12?
I like your version better. I like your version better because it gives me more wiggle room.
Yeah.
I'm going with what you just said, 6 to 10.
Because for me, 4th seems very bold.
That's what I thought the same
I knew
thing.
you felt bold about that
I was
too.
like, fuck, man, 4th.
Yeah, like 4, it's crazy how 4 can sound outrageous.
Yeah.
But 6, you're like, I get it.
But that's a top 4 roster.
Yeah,
Tell me that
I
isn't
agree
a
with
top 4 roster.
Yeah.
6 to 10 is much, I agree with that more. Absolutely. Fuck, but in saying that, if they finish 9th or 10th, that's a bad year.
But, mate, they could finish, mate, if they don't sort out all the seemingly off-field stuff and they get a couple of injuries here and there. I mean, the ball hasn't been fucking kicked yet. They've just lost their halfback. I mean, they've just lost Harley Smith-Shields as well. They could finish 14th.
Fuck, mate, that
which would just be a shitstorm, but... I mean, Matty, you got the ladder. Where'd they finish last year? What were they, 11th? 10th, 11th, around that mark?
In one of the worst bottom table seasons we've ever seen.
Yeah, it was the easiest year to ever make the finals.
Yeah. Well, it was only a year where you had a win-loss ratio.
Yeah, by 4 games, it wasn't even close.
Fuck. And they lost Harley Smith-Shields as well.
Yeah, I mean...
they came 10th last year.
Mate, finishing 14th isn't... I mean, there's a heap of teams below 10th that, in my opinion, have improved this year.
I'm nervous because I look at that roster and I'm like, I can't see them outside the 8. That's a top 8 roster every day of the week. I'm going to even narrow it down even more. I think 6th to 9th. 6th to 9th.
No,
10th
I can't draw a line in the sand at 9 because they showed last year that they're more than capable of completely shitting the bed.
But 10th for me is a massive disappointment. Massive.
So is 13th, but it wouldn't surprise me because they've got that sort of capability in them. I mean, we've already seen Ricky, and fair enough, come out and already blowing up. I mean, he's already had one huge blow up in him. It's 2 weeks away from... it's a sensational blow up. It's got Ricky written all over it.
One of the best blow ups I've ever seen in my life.
But, like, they're not under pressure yet. Nothing started.
Yeah, wow. I'm going glass half full. I think they make the 8. Somehow.
You always make me sound like an asshole.
No, because I'm with you. I'm absolutely with you. Like you're truly right. Like they showed last year they had an incredible roster and they struggled. So, but I just think that watching the trials, they seem to be past that. They seem to be past it.
Does Jack play Origin this year?
I don't think so. I think that Papenhuyzen gets that 14 role. I think either Papenhuyzen or Nico Hines. Even Radley.
I was about to say Radley could be another one. Yeah.
Very that 14. You could even put Schuster in it.
If Jack misses Origin, Raiders miss finals, player option next year.
Well, I think he takes it because he'd be demanding fair coin. The Broncos make a play at him. 6 with Adam Reynolds. Probably couldn't afford him. You know what? He probably would demand quite a bit on the market.
Because I personally think that if the Raiders end up parting ways with Ricky Stewart, I think it's a matter of time until Jack will go too. I think those two are pretty heavily linked to each other. I don't think that's any secret. The more you look into this season, the bigger it is for Canberra.
Yeah, it's defining.
Yep.
It's a club defining year because they fought their way tooth and nail all the way up to being one of the most loved clubs in the NRL into the grand final. They could truly drop down to second year in a row.
It was so impressive what they did. Like, it's very hard to find anyone that's got much sympathy for Ricky Stewart, realistically. Let's call a spade. Like, it's hard to find someone that's got sympathy for him, and people were genuinely getting around. Granted, they played the Roosters, which was probably an ideal matchup for them as far as the public eye goes, but people were around the Canberra Raiders. There was milk left, right, and centre. People were
massively
Viking
around.
clap. There was Roosters fans doing the fucking Viking clap at the grand final. Like, people got right into Raiders fever, and I don't know, it feels like it's kind of been undone.
Just quickly, another guy that I think that actually trialled really well, especially in the first trial, Albert Hopper-Whitey. He could sneak a wing spot.
Yeah, I hope so, mate. Hopper. I had like a Facebook memory come up the other day, and it was of one of my first ever Guru posts from 2018 that said this could be the year for Hopper. I know he's had injuries previously. This could be the year. So we're pushing 4 or 5 years of that same rhetoric with Hopper. He's got ability. There's no doubt about that whatsoever. His body just needs to help him out.
For sure. Look, I'm just going to go off what I've seen at the trials. I think the Raiders are on the bounce back. Not bouncing back to where they were, but I think they're going to progress back.
Bouncing back to being relevant.
Bouncing back to be a real challenge for the top 8, and I think Schneider is a huge part of that. And if it's not Schneider, it's Fogarty when he comes back. Because we know, So I'm glass half full for Raiders. I'm glass half full. I've got a bit of hope for them for sure.
Yeah, and as much as I said negative things, as I said, they're one of my 2 teams I've got penciled in for the 8th spot.
Yeah.
But I can't quite split at the moment.
Just for Raiders Sharks, the odds are actually even, $1.90.
Really? See, that's why I can't split them either, bro. At least we're on the money with it because I don't know. The Sharks. Anyway, I'll have to think about it more. If I have to, I'm going to go Sharks.
I'm going to go Raiders.
Okay.
Board bet. We're on.
Yeah, we're on. Now, on to this for me is the biggest swing side in the comp. I actually have them 4 to 8.
Yeah. So do I. And I it's such a weird competition.
We're talking about the Rabbitohs, by the way.
Yeah, Rabbitohs, yeah. It's so weird when a team can go from, an out-and-out top 4 to a 4 to 8, and we talk about it like it's a big downgrade.
Yeah.
Like, it's not really, but I just don't think they are in those top 3. Like, for me, I can only see 3 teams lifting a trophy at the end of this season. South Sydney, they aren't one of them. To be fair, they weren't one of mine last year. They made it to the grand final, so credit to them. But I think there's enough worse teams than them in this competition for them to definitely play finals footy. But I think 4th is the absolute best place they can finish, and I would argue that 8th is probably, I think, the worst place they can finish based on their roster.
The only concern I have with them is things could snowball.
Yeah.
Someone gets injured, Cody Walker gets injured. All of a sudden, that Wayne shadow that seems to absolutely decimate clubs, that could hurt them. Like, the media then, the Chell gets injured, or, you know what I mean? Like, it just could become a situation where they're chasing their tail. It's splashed all over and they've got a young 7 under pressure. That's that's doomsday scenario. That's a worst case scenario. But I do believe that they will fight tooth and nail, get in that 4 to 8. Now, last year they ended up third, I think. But we have to remember most of the year they were hovering around that 4 to, I'm pretty sure anyway. I think at the start of the year, a lot of people had them out of the 8.
Yeah.
So, look, I think they'll fight their way into that 4 to 8. And I think that, again, it could go either way. We could see a similar run that we saw last year. Because we have to remember, in that grand final and the game before as well, I think Reynolds was like pretty badly injured. Could barely kick.
He wasn't kicking,
Yeah, so I still believe, are they a premiership threat? Not as much as last year, but they have Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell magic, so I'm not willing to rule them out.
They've got enough talent to beat 12 of these sides in this competition week to week for me, which will see them with a top 8 finish. I mentioned it earlier. Michael Pride had some other really interesting numbers, I thought, on teams coached by Wayne Bennett the year after. Yep. On average, they dropped down at least 3 spots on the ladder. So that would have them at sort of that 6th, sort of 7th range, which we believe in. I also, my jury is a little bit out on the coach as far as just sort of the way that he sort of handled himself during that grand final worried me a little bit. And it's not really an insult to him. It's more so just you're coming in after Wayne Bennett, who is just so calm, relaxed. Everything's just sort of in cruise control. You're losing your halfback. A lot of things change. I think he is a bit more of an intense character from what I've seen. And I just wonder how this squad is going to respond to that after being so used to the way that Wayne does things. The other thing about this is the coach, Demetrio. He's been the assistant for the last few years. You can talk about it better than me. What's the relationship like with your assistant coach?
Oh, man. Oh, it's totally different because you get to give all the good news and none of the shit news. And we're
going to have to hand out a lot of shit news this year, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, look, he's a rookie coach. We do not know how he's going to go. We do not know how he's going to go. Regardless of Wayne, regardless of it, being a head coach in the NRL, we've got maybe 4 coaches that have cemented their spots that are currently in the NRL. We've got Desi Hasler, who was also under pressure last year. You got Wayne Bennett, you got Trent Robertson, Craig Bellamy. That's really it. Outside of that, bit of a revolving door. So hopefully Dimitri does it. One thing I am quite concerned about, actually significantly concerned, it's not about this year. Latrell Mitchell and Cody Walker can sign with another club November 1st of this year. That is 2 motherfuckers you don't want off contract at the same time. Do you have concerns with that?
Yeah.
And also Damien Cook as well.
Damien Cook as well, yeah. I think that I think the young bloke they've got behind Damien Cook, Matt Mamazelis, he's no Damien Cook, but I think that if something was to happen that Cook was to leave, there's a gap between Damien Cook and Mamazelis, don't get me wrong, but I think the gap between those two is a little bit closer than Latrell and whoever would be next in Cody, if you know what I mean.
Cody Walker and Latrell, holy shit.
I think Latrell and Cody will stay there long term, but mate, if this season doesn't go well, and this is where I do worry about losing Wayne Bennett is with these two, because he seemed to have such a good bond with both of them.
Should I say the dirty word?
Shoot, go.
A club that should not be named, Redcliffe Dolphins.
Yeah, look, the one thing I will say about Latrell and Cody, I just know that they are so ingrained with the local community.
Oh, for sure.
Well. That's the other thing that think plays into South Sydney's favour. I think it'd be... I mean, in saying that, Cody's from... I think Cody went to Palm Beach, Currumbin, did he?
He lived in Gold Coast for quite a while, and he's from northern New South Wales, I'm pretty sure.
Sweet. Yeah. So he'd be a 4 iron down the road to where he's... And
I know... I'm pretty sure Latrell's been taking unders for the last 2 years. Latrell's only 23 still, hey? Could you check that for me?
Yeah, 23, yeah.
That to me blows my mind, eh? He's 23 years old.
Oh, he's 24.
24. He still has 10 years left in the NRL.
But Latrell could change clubs next year and play somewhere else for 10 years.
That's wild. That's wild.
I wonder if Wayne does... I mean, if Wayne isn't able to get his paws on a Reece Walsh, Kalen Ponga, Latrell...
Well, I'm actually more concerned about the Cody Walker.
Yeah.
Because I just think that don't get me wrong, he had a great connection with Latrell. But like Cody Walker at the end of his career, goes up to Wayne Bennett. He would be so good for that younger. In saying that, he'd be 33, 34.
Yeah, that's the only thing I worry about. But, fuck, tell me after watching him this year that he's slowing down. Tell me after watching him on Saturday night running around like a teenager, like a maniac.
Playing some of the best footy he's ever played.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he looked freer the other night than I've seen him.
Absolutely. Looked physically the best I've seen him in a very long time. Best trials I've ever seen him play. Interesting. Very interesting time for Rabbitohs. They've got a great squad. Arrow's fantastic. Cook, Graham. Ilias is good for a rookie. Tangi is fantastic. So, Cam Murray, obviously incredible.
Oh, I think you'll see Tangi have a very good season.
He looks good in the trials.
Well, from watching how they were playing in the trials, looks like Jai Arrow's going to be on the left.
Yeah.
If you play left edge back row for the South Sydney Rabbitohs, on the surface it looks like it's great, but you run as a decoy the vast majority of the time. Out on the right side, I think you'll see Tangi and the halfback Ilias strike up a really good combination, and you'll start to see why Freddie has Tangi in his origin squad. He's got a lot to offer.
Yeah, no. He was, 19th man or something this year?
Yep.
Yeah, look, I think the only reason why we're going, I'm a bit concerned about the Rabbitohs, I think it's the Wayne effect.
Yep.
I think if we look at that roster, yes, they've lost Reynolds. It's still a top tier roster. Still a top tier roster. It's just the rookie coach, no Wayne Bennett and Reynolds is the only question marks. But then when you sit down and you go, okay, Damien Cook, Cam Murray, Latrell Mitchell, Cody Walker, Tom Burgess, Jai Arrow, do you know what I mean? This is a top tier roster.
No team's ever got better the year after Wayne leaves. And this team, they might not get better, but even if they get a little bit worse, it's still heaps better than a lot of other teams in this competition.
For sure. And it's still... they've got a good foundation there. They can recruit whoever they want at the moment.
And I wouldn't even say that they'll get worse. They'll just be different.
Be way different. It'll be a Cody Walker show.
It'll be the Cody Walker show. I think Ilias will grow and grow and grow. He's my Rookie of the Year tip. I think he'll do very well. Obviously, the position helps. The team helps. I think he'll have a very good season. I just think as the season goes on, they'll be better and better. And... yeah, I don't know if they'll be good enough at the back end to really compete with those top sides, but this is a team I don't want to play in a prelim.
Oh, fuck that.
Miss me with that. No thanks.
Can you imagine, you've got an elimination final, you just lost the week before, and you've got an angry Latrell and Cody Walker that watched Michael Jordan's documentary?
I even think, no matter how well South Sydney go, I still think come finals time, the vast majority of people will say Melbourne, Roosters, Penrith are still the top three teams to beat, regardless of South Sydney. We haven't seen them on the big stages without Adam Reynolds. So, I think
that narrative is going to be there all year.
It's going to be there regardless. I honestly reckon this team could almost go undefeated until finals, and people would still sit there and say, but Adam Reynolds on the big stage, we don't know what's going to happen.
And Wayne Bennett usually gets them up.
Yeah.
So they could be a real dark horse.
They're going to be underdogs no matter what.
No matter what. And you don't want Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell as underdogs because it's scary. So I think South Sydney are going to have a good solid year. I don't think the narrative that the whole club's going to explode because Wayne isn't there, I don't think so. I think they left on good terms. I'd be very surprised if this squad just completely bombs. I think they're going to have a good solid year.
They got too many good guys in key spots to bomb for me.
And watching Cody Walker take it personally, literally, how
good was it to say?
Fuck, he was good. He's so... I personally have never seen a guy with a better footy brain on the field, just pick things apart.
There was a moment where, as I said, when you play left edge back row for South Sydney, you tend to be a decoy. There was a moment where he got the ball and he threw it to Jai Arrow and he dropped him off, then he wrapped around the back and he just told the next three guys where you need. I haven't seen Cody do that before.
Fucking hell.
That art of dropping your back rower, then coming down the short side, taking that back row up, putting him at first marker, and then just playing around with what you've got. I haven't seen him do that in a while, and they scored the next play and they just looked lethal. We're the same. I'm still so far convinced on the left centre in Paulo.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. It could be a real concern because it's like the Eels that kept having that defensive issues on their edges and just getting pulled apart for a while there.
I was very keen to see them round one match up against the Broncos because it would have been Paulo up against Katoni Staggs, and we'll get to Brisbane in a minute. But the way that they look structured at the moment, I'm not sure if Staggs is going to get the good ball that he probably needs.
Yeah. I don't know who gets that spot. I guess it's Paulo that gets that centre spot, but I think Tass coming back hopefully will put a bit of pressure there.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
And hopefully Paulo turns into he's a great winger.
Yeah, I think he's stoked to be wrong on Paul.
Yeah, 100%. And maybe it's just a couple of poor trials and he bounces back. Because he's a big athletic boy. And he's really young, so he's got plenty of years to learn his craft. And he had some great games last year. Great games last year. So hopefully he bounces back. Now, the Brisbane Broncos. Who have you got winning this match? Rabbitohs versus Broncos, the mighty, mighty Broncos.
Well, I know you've pushed your ambush back, and I'm all for it. I'm going to go with the Bunnies here. Man, I've got to tell you, even if Adam Reynolds was playing, I think I still go with South Sydney.
Really?
And I said all off-season that I thought this would be a really hard clash for the Bunnies, but I'm sorry, mate, what I've seen in trials from you guys has just been... It's been disappointing, hasn't it? You must be shattered to some extent by... They just still seem to lack direction to me. And I know that is what Reynolds will bring. And Reynolds is a great player. I love him. I'm huge on him. But bringing Reynolds into this Broncos team, I don't think it's the same as bringing Cleary into this Panthers side. I don't think it all of a sudden everyone just grows an extra leg and they're unbelievable. Where do you sit?
Yeah, look, very disappointing. I just, the bias in me just keeps saying, look, hopefully it's just trials. Hopefully it's trials. Hopefully...
Which has been proven right on a number of occasions in the past.
And so I understand that is me just like, put it this way. If I'm looking at the doggies, I'm going, I'm really concerned.
Yep.
Because I'm looking at the Broncos, I'm going, hopefully it's just, regardless, it's absolutely disappointing. It doesn't matter whether you're playing a trial or an NRL game, you don't want to turn out that. All I'm hoping, and I'm hoping with the doggies as well, I'm hoping with the doggies that there were certain decisions made by the coach in trials that pulled players off in certain periods where they would have kept them on and all that kind of stuff. I did feel we were pretty good with Haas and Carrigan on the field.
Yep.
I thought we lost a lot when they came off. But yeah, I'm absolutely disappointed with the trial matches. Again, just hoping that it's trials. But I look at this roster, it looks a lot better than the last 2 years, that's for sure.
100%. Definitely looks better. I will say this, even as far as round one goes, you have to remember Brisbane are missing 2 out of their 4 starting spine. They're going to be missing Tessie New, who I think would have been their first choice fullback, and they're missing Adam Reynolds, obviously, assuming. I think there's a chance that Adam Reynolds could play, but I'm not buying it.
Why are we risking... You already had a hammy concern. You're going to risk him after no training, essentially, for 7... Well, it's training, but it's on a bike.
Well, yeah. It's a real kick in the dick for the Broncos, too, that they've spent the last 3 weeks trying to work out who on earth is going to partner him. Man. They haven't... I'm sure they have decided, but I don't think it'd be a definitive decision on this is the guy, he owns it. It's like, well, he's been the best out of these guys.
Latest word is going to be Albert Kelly and Walters. That's the latest word.
And that makes sense to me.
I feel a bit sorry for Gamble, to be honest.
I'll tell you what would be really interesting, and I know you won't do it, and people will probably call me crazy. Kobe Hetherington is out in game 1. I would play Gamble at 13.
Yeah, I'd consider that. Hetherington's such a big loss. Oh, my God. If there was one guy that trialled really well, it was Hetherington.
No one's talking about it either.
Mate.
Well, I mean, if you include your lock and your spine, all of a sudden they've lost 3 of their starting 5 spine.
Hetherington, to me, is one of my most, when I see that we're struggling, I get disappointed. I watch a guy like Hetherington and go... There's hope, you know what I mean? There's hope there. Obviously, I look at Haas and Carrigan, I go, hope. But Hetherington's a guy that's come through during this tough period.
Yeah.
And really, Hetherington represents, and so does Carrigan, Haas, Staggs to a degree.
He's probably the best value player in your team.
Absolutely. But he represents that old school Broncos mentality.
Yeah.
Just ripping and not turning off. Not just for a set, we're just going to turn off. He never turns off, so I'm devastated.
His old man was like that too.
Yeah, okay.
Jason.
He goes all day.
Yeah.
And he never just takes a tackle. I'm just going to take the tackle, get dominated. He's fighting every single play. And that's what we used to be all about. It's just 80 minutes, we fight every single play. There's no I'll just let you win this one, right? It's just... Anyway. Look, Broncos, Kurt Capewell coming out as captain. I think... Look, I'm going to pick him for an upset. I think, yes, we don't have Reynolds. Yes, we're missing 3 of our initial starting spine. But I do believe we have an it's one game. It's the first game of the season. It's up at Brisbane, I'm pretty sure.
It is.
The boys come out firing and they get a bit of a quick start.
And I mean, we're using the Broncos as an example here. Every single team will be in the same boat. This is their chance. They've put 6 months into this. Some teams a lot of teams coming off, 12 teams coming off probably disappointing seasons by their standards, realistically. They're going to be every single team. Every single team is going to be up for this game. And Brisbane are going to be another one. I don't know. I just thought that the squad had looked more confident right now than what it does.
No, absolutely. I agree. It's definitely been disappointing for sure. The trials have not given us. If anything, it's probably made us less hopeful. You know, we came into the season looking at the roster going, fuck, like, we might challenge top 8 here. As in, some people thought that. I always thought 10 is, if we land at 10th, I think that's a win for us. So, yeah, for this season, it's all about Reynolds playing as much footy as he can and Catewell. If we can get an injury-free season and finish 10th, I'm happy with that.
It's the NRL, though.
Yeah,
You're going to have injuries.
But what I'm trying to get at is that, like, a young squad with key players playing for long periods of time to build those combinations up.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that, Capewell, by the end of the season, he knows who his half is, he knows who his centre is going to be, winger, and they build because before this year, it's like, where's the combinations? They just don't exist. We went through like 6 halves pairings. So if they finish 10th to 12th, I'd be happy with that. Anything less than 12th, in my opinion, is a disappointing year for the Broncos.
Did you ever think you'd say that sentence?
Oh, no fucking way.
Like,
no way.
like without trying to put the shoe into you, but like honestly, for the club that the Broncos have always been, for the club that you played for, the club that I watched come through, it is so disappointing. And people are probably used to it now because it's been 2 years, but to me, it just seems like a strange reality, a bizarre reality for the Brisbane Broncos to be in this.
With
spot.
the resources that we have, and we basically don't know, we don't even have a 6 yet. I mean, we're the Brisbane Broncos. We don't have a Darren Lockyer. That's our slot. We don't have one of them. Like, it's not to say that we could get another Darren Lockyer, but do you understand what I'm saying? Now, don't get me wrong. Ezra Mam looks fantastic and probably will get that jersey next year. Well, most likely. But, yeah,
I think Ezra Mam's got a big future ahead of him, but we have seen a lot of Ezra Mams.
Oh, for sure.
So it's.
I mean, Solon Cobbo, although a freak, he still has a lot to prove in first grade. Like, there's no sure thing with him.
Yeah.
But he's closest to a sure, without injury. He's as close to a sure thing as you could fucking.
Yeah. Hopefully Ezra Mam kicks on. I think he's got all the ability in the world. I mean, I remember looking at Albert Kelly when he first came on the scene and he was electrifying, unbelievable. You thought he could be anything. It'll be interesting if Adam Reynolds, I mean, yes, the COVID stuff, but I mean, it's blatantly obvious he's carrying an injury.
Yeah.
Right? There's no hiding away from that. Geez, if they do try and bring him back earlier than what he should, which wouldn't surprise me, to be honest with you.
Crazy if they did. Absolutely crazy.
Yeah, but it wouldn't surprise me if they do, mate. The optics, him coming back as the saviour, the guy to turn it around.
Mate, hold your nerve. Hold your nerve.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but it wouldn't shock me if they do. And if he gets injured, could the optics have ever been worse for Brisbane?
It'll be a disaster. If he comes back early and does his hammy, it will be an absolute disaster.
Yeah,
like,
and then
the pressure on the coaching staff and everything like that will be ginormous then.
Yeah, and then you will start to see more and more of the narrative around Billy Walters and Kevin Walters start to be played out in the media. They'll be like vultures to them. That's
going to be fucked. Look, let's look at some positive stuff. Everyone always you always rap the Broncos. I'm like, bro, I sit here getting the Broncos get pizzled on my own show.
I think it's a pretty unfair narrative.
If there's one thing, I sit here, Hello Sport guys, every week, absolutely hammering them. I've got the guru hammering them. And then it was like, oh, you always give Broncos raps. I'm like, do you even listen to the fucking
mate,
show?
And I'll defend you here. You've never said they would be top 8. I had them pegged as a potential 8.
Yeah, okay.
For a lot of the preseason until trials were kicked off.
I've been telling people to relax. Like, you don't build standards that you need to become a great club in less than a preseason. But anyway, Nega's out of the way. I do hope that a Rabati, Riki, and Pecora kick on because I can see them being 3 of the better back rowers in the comp over the next few years. They have the potential to be very damaging back rowers.
Yeah, huge upside. Rabati, I really liked in little patches last year. I think he's got a lot to offer. Pecora, I know a lot of people got raps on him. Ricky, and he could be anything. I think with Ricky, you got to remember, he's only been playing rugby league for a couple of years. He's still finding his way, Jordan Ricky, which is scary to think what he is doing.
Well, he's already I think his attack is good. His defence is where he needs to work on. But he's already impacting games as a guy that's not played much footy.
And he was put in before he was ready.
I mean,
you might think he's up to
was. That whole. I mean, even a guy like that. This whole look at this squad, man. Like all these young forwards: Reece Kennedy, Flegler, Hetherington. You could even argue all these boys were put in too early, and they went as fucking hard as they could. But hopefully, we're going to see the positives of that. Now Flegler has played plenty of first grade. And now Reece Kennedy also played a lot of first grade. So. Hopefully we get some dividends from that. I think we will. Like, for example, Flegler, when he runs hard and straight, he's fantastic. He's a real smoky for Origin as well.
Yeah. I'll say this, when I look at your squad, and we've got all the names down here, how long they're contracted to. You look at the names that have 2024 next to them. Capewell, Carrigan, Haas, Ezra Mam, Piacora, Reynolds, Ricky, Tabati, Staggs. It's a pretty good group of guys to build around for the future.
I think that one thing, regardless of how we go this year, our salary cap is finally balancing back into to where it should be. Whereas we had a bunch of guys before that, even though I didn't think some of them should have been moved on, but they were on huge contracts that weren't really delivering what they should be delivering.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the last 2 years before that, I felt like when Anthony Seabold got there, I thought he was too gun-ho to move on Maguire, move on, you know what I mean? Move on all the older guys that had been there, part of the success.
Yep.
Like Andrew McCulloch, I think that's a really one that sticks out. He's a Bronco through and through. He was there through the success, and we still haven't had someone replace him. And yet we tried to move him on for years. And it's is he yes, he doesn't offer that much in attack, but are you telling me he hasn't gone down to the Dragons and didn't go to the Knights and play well?
Yeah, but you let him go after trying to get rid of him for years. It was blatantly obvious to me it was a mistake. You then had an opportunity to get him back.
Yeah,
and you said, no, thanks.
Yeah. And we're still fighting to get Corey Pakes to become a hooker.
Yeah, now we're arguing over who should be the hooker. And
whereas Dragons, he's locked it down in that position.
If either of these two hookers are at the Dragons, they wouldn't be the starting hooker.
Yeah, it's that was a massive mistake. Obviously, Maguire hasn't gone on to play as well as he would have hoped, but it's still like he was playing. He's still a part of that culture. I just thought that Seabold was too keen to bring in the new instead of just slowly introducing
And
him.
as much as Maguire hasn't played as well, I think he's the sort of attitude you've probably needed the last few
years. Absolutely. We need a bit of mongrel in us. And don't get me wrong, I think Haas, Hetherington, Carrigan.
And he's also a forward that has played with those guys before.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what I mean by the Seabold moving those players on. You gutted the connection between the old and the new because they came McCulloch, Glenn, Gillett, all those boys. They came in just as the older boys were retiring, so they really had that connection to them. Anyway,
is Matt Gillett the most underrated factor in your downfall over the last few years?
He was so important to us.
So important.
And him retiring was just such a big blow to the club. But yeah, look. The positive with the Broncos is their roster is unbalanced. We have Kurt Capewell, we have Adam Reynolds. It's all about setting standards this year. What does it mean to be a Bronco? We are no longer going to watch one of our players take a shortcut and cop that. We're no longer going to cop that. So although the trials, yes, we're disappointing, we are, in my opinion, in a much better place. And I would argue Ezra Mam and Selwyn Cobbo are two of the most exciting talents, period, in the NRL as rookies. That's got to count for something.
Yeah.
That's got to count for something. So hopefully we go all right. But I'm going 10th to 12th. I'm going to pick them as 10th to 12th. What have you got them in?
Yeah, I've probably got them 10th to 14th.
10th to
pending
14th?
Reynolds.
Yep, pending Reynolds. And do you have them Rabbitohs or Broncos?
Rabbitohs.
Okay. Now,
sticking with you boys?
Yeah, I'm going to go Broncos for an upset. Not because I'm just saying that because of bias. Obviously there is some bias there. Just because it's at home, and I just think they're going to come out with so much fucking energy that they may, Rabbitohs may be whoa, because I really actually think the Reynolds not playing has taken a lot of sting out of the matchup for South. Whereas Broncos have so much to play for, it's outrageous. On top of that, Latrell Mitchell's not playing. So they're missing Latrell Mitchell, which is a huge factor. So I'm going to go.
And they are still working out their new combos, their back row roles.
So I just think
sides,
Broncos for the upset. Broncos for the upset. Don't get me wrong, it would be an upset, but Broncos for upset. Now, Sydney Roosters. Mate, I think Sydney Roosters this year, if Sam Walker plays the whole year and doesn't have issues, like totally injury-free, I think they're a premiership threat.
Yeah, for sure. I've probably got them and the Panthers in the grand final at the moment. I mean, no need for me to repeat it, but I mean, you look at what the Roosters did with half a squad last year. Incredible. They're going to be the goods this year. I've had a lot of people say that, oh yeah, but they've lost so much experience. They lost a heap of experience last year. They pulled it together playing off the top of their head, essentially, with an 18-year-old who hadn't played rugby league in 18 months with the keys, with a pre-season under his belt, with Luke Keary back in the fold. I think Teddy, as great as he was last year, I think he can go back to more of his natural game, not having to play fullback and 5'8". I think it'll be more dangerous for him. I think the key is Radley, though. I think he needs to play more games of football than what he did last year. He is the stabiliser in this team. He's just so important to them. And
it's almost, honestly, it's going to sound sacrilegious, but I would almost go to Radley, like, look, bro, in D, just don't even worry about it.
Chill.
And that's not just, like, I love his aggression, but I just think he brings so much in attack. That extra big hit that he pulls off, although it does G the boys up, and I fucking love it, it's just like, is it worth the risk of not having you on the field?
Yeah, I think people watched Newcastle the other night and went, oh, and same as myself, they look better because they've got Kurt Mann controlling the centre third, Clune on the left. Mate, when the Roosters had Cooper Cronk, Radley was still controlling the middle.
Yeah.
I think people forget how important he was in both those grand finals. He's not only a premier lock, he's a premier ball player in our game.
Yeah, he's gone.
He is so underrated, it's not even funny. To have Cooper Cronk and Luke Keary and you still let Radley control the centre third, middle of the field was crazy. And I just think he's so important to this side. He needs to stay on the field. And, I mean, good luck telling Radley to take it easy in defense.
Yeah, I know.
He'll probably
tough.
whack you, but
I just think that
the upside in attack he brings, it's not.
That's what I mean. Like he's probably the best ball. Not probably. He is the best ball playing lock in the competition, in my opinion. And I just think, like, we know you could snap blokes, but it's just so risky with today's game. I just think the game doesn't allow for blokes like Radley to really fucking rip in, which is so depressing.
And it's not like that. Like, for me, I look at this Roosters side and I'm like, I understand what Rads can bring, but he doesn't need to be the alpha arsehole. You've got Jared Rea-Hargraves. Let him do that shit. Let him. He's done it for 15 years now.
For sure.
He's got it.
And, you've got Satili Tupanua on one edge, who is so aggressive. You've got Saluka Fafita, who actually really impressed me in the trials. When it comes to mongrel, they are not lacking in mongrel. Lindsay Collins goes all day. Angus Crichton, who is off contract, that basically said the contract is done, so that's great news for the Roosters. Then you've got Egan Butcher, Nat Butcher. You got they're not lacking for mongrel. They are not lacking for mongrel.
And mate, if Radley doesn't pull off a single big shot this year, it doesn't impact the Roosters at all for me.
I personally would rather see Radley lift a trophy than pull off a single big hit this year.
Lift a third trophy.
Yeah. I got a good stat for you. Before Radley got suspended last year, he had the most try involvements per game than any lock, the most receipts per game from any lock, the most line break assists of any lock, and the most line engage runs per game of any lock.
Stand out as the receipts. That's how important he is to one of the best sides in the competition.
Yeah, and it just, that's what I mean. Like, is it worth those big hits? Like, we just got the stats. Sometimes you guys think we're talking shit up here, but we actually watch a bit of footy. We watch a bit of footy.
Too much, some would say.
Too much footy. My missus would say, that's for sure. But the number one ball playing lock in the competition, is it worth him jamming a bloke? I don't think so. Again, it breaks my heart to say, because, like, how could the game gone so far where a guy like Radley can't express himself, the way he and this is
but it's the reality.
It is the reality, and this is coming from a bloke that got fucking shotted all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not like I wasn't in there getting bashed by blokes like Radley. Bloody hell. So Radley is a key as well for me. Again, key for me too. I hope Sammy Walker gets through the whole year injury-free, and by the end of the year, we're not seeing him on the sideline all fucking, in slings and rah-rah. We're seeing Sammy Walker just go to demigod status. That's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, and I mean, Even if he's not injured or anything during the year, I wouldn't be surprised to see Sam Walker just have a few games off. They can cover him.
Yeah.
I think I'm glad that Sam Walker is in the hands of Trent Robinson.
Yeah, he knows how to handle him.
Yeah.
He knows how to handle him. I mean, it's scary to think how good his attack was last year. Now he has a whole other preseason on his belt, and he's going to be paired with Luke Keary. That's scary.
Yeah. Hey, Matt, can you check how many tries Tilly Tupanua scored last year? I think he is in for a huge season, Tupanua. Yep. I think that David Fafita had this unbelievable season last year. I think he scored 17 tries in the year, which is incredible. Mate, I think Tupanua and Matt will get
12.
He scored 12
Wow.
with with all due respect to Hutchinson, a journeyman 5'8", a teenager learning just to find his way in first grade at halfback. We know that Luke Keary tends to play a lot of his best footy down the right edge. I think that Sitili Tupanua, it's probably bold. I'm going to back him to score more tries this year than Fafita.
Wow. A raging Fafita.
This Tupanua, I don't think we've seen anywhere near his best either. I think he's going to have a huge breakout season this year.
It's interesting because, like, at the start of before last season, I went and had coffee with the Morris brothers at the Roosters, and they said, mate, this is before last season, you should see Sitili. He's going to have a massive year. He has been killing it in training. I think we haven't even seen the ceiling of Sitili.
Scratching the surface.
Yeah, I think he can be one of the most damaging ball runners in the competition. And what's crazy is, like, you're not even mentioning Angus Crichton, who is falling, for me personally, and this may be a bit of a hot take, he's starting to get into that Teddy territory of he's playing so good, so regularly, you just expect it.
Yeah.
You expect this, like, top tier. Any other player in the back row playing the way Angus has over the last few years, you'd be like, holy shit, this is like the next big back rower. But we just become used to it. We've become so used to Angus Crichton playing the way he is.
And the few times he's been shifted into the middle, he's been as effective.
Mate, comes into Origin. Even in that Origin, I think where, when Queensland won, I'm pretty sure Angus Crichton was really the only one that took it to a Queensland forward pack that essentially dominated that game 3. Angus Crichton was the only one that really gave it back to us.
He's a different beast,
Angus Crichton. He comes all day.
Yeah. And as I said with Sitili, the other thing even when you're marking up on that edge, you're going to have Sam Walker and Luke Keary coming to that side. When you're marking up against that edge, I just think, like, you can't keep your eyes on Sitili because you've got Teddy, Joey Manu, and then you're going to have Suwali or Kevin Nguama. Like, that edge is going to be lethal, as they were last year. But I think there's going to be a lot of points scored down the Roosters' right edge this year. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I've actually Smokey Tupu try scorer of the year, top try scorer.
Out on the left sting.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, mate, the right edge could be the best edge in rugby league, and Tupu could still get top try scorer, and it wouldn't.
I just think that, like, the way he played in the trials and how much, like, I just think he's in for a big year. And, like, the Roosters, if they go on the run that we think they can, interesting person, I think, or two, Lindsay Collins, he is such a big in for them.
He's a huge in. Yeah.
He's an Origin front rower. He was a huge part of that famous Queensland win. Without Lindsay Collins, we don't win that game. Lindsay Collins and Christian Welch.
Yep, for sure. He's coming off an ACL, so I wouldn't judge him on his performances in the first half of the season, but come finals time, he will be ready to rip and tear, and he's a premier front row in our game. It's interesting, you look at that list, you look at that Roosters squad, how much talent they've got. He's the only guy that signed up past 2025. He's the only guy signed up for 2025 and 2026, so that shows how excited they are about him. And I think off the bench, him and a Tony are going to cause havoc this year.
Agreed. What a squad. What a bloody squad. Like, we haven't even talking about Joseph Marnie yet. Or Suwali, who is like the next big thing. Interesting 2 player option years for Suwali. Yet to activate them. The Roosters are so good, man. They're the masters of just... Used to be the Broncos, but the fact that there hasn't been an absolute circus around Suwali yet to take up his player option is so good from the Roosters.
Name another club outside of Melbourne that would have Suwali with 2 years of player options coming up and wouldn't even be stressed about it. The Roosters would just be so confident.
We haven't heard a peep about it. Like, Suwali is the next big thing.
If a different head coach and CEO walked into Bondi Junction and talked to Suwali, the Roosters go, yep, have your conversation, do your best.
Yeah.
We're so confident he's going to be here, it doesn't. We're fine.
For sure. No, I think Suwali's in for a massive year. I actually thought he played pretty well when he did play. I was really impressed with his physicality for how young he was. I think he's in for a solid year.
Yeah, people put their expectations too high. It was the physicality that you had to watch, and he nailed it.
Absolutely. Like, didn't leak tries. People thought he was going to come in and be like Israel Folau or whatever. But he came in a year where there was decimated by injury, and we have to remember Israel Folau came into a rampaging Storm side as an outside back, coming into a team that isn't like. You need your team to be killing it for you to kill it, usually, if you're a rookie, usually. I thought he went really well.
We'll say this about Swiley too. He is coming off a Liz Frank injury, which traditionally is one of the more unpredictable injuries.
Yep.
He's another guy that I'd probably give him a month or so before you start to sort of judge the way he's going, because it's an injury that he wouldn't have trained on much this preseason. It's a really awkward little one.
You want to, something that's really impressive about this roster that won't get brought up really at all? They only have 2 players that I'm aware of in their top squad that haven't played first grade. That's
Who
pretty.
Are they?
That's White and Graham before.
And White looked I think he might have played some grade, but he looked incredibly impressive in that trial.
So White
too.
has?
Yeah, can you double check that?
Well, if that's the case, that's even.
I think he played a couple of games.
How many
last
squads
year.
can tout that?
Yeah.
How many squads can say our entire squad has played first grade?
And you still don't have our boy on there either. The young 5'8". Name has escaped me. Ronald.
Oh, yeah. Vulcan.
This list doesn't have the developmental players on them.
That's all right, though. But I'm talking, the top squad, every single player has played first grade, or at least 99.
Yeah, true. White played 3 games.
3 games.
He played
came
3
off
games?
the bench, I think.
And what about Graham Tofua?
I don't think he has.
So you've got 1 player in your top squad that hasn't played first grade.
Which is where a really shit season of injuries pays dividends.
Yeah, for sure. Like, when you look at that, any of those players could do a job. Like, there's no one there's no weakness in that top squad. There's no youth that you're like, oh shit, how will he turn out? Roosters are in for a big year. SEN made me select it. I said Roosters to win the comp, but I don't know. I think Roosters, Panthers, and Eels are, Roosters, Panthers, and Storm.
Yep.
Are probably your favourites. I just didn't say Storm because I was with Cam Smith. I was like, we both can't say the Storm.
He's back in the Storm, is he?
Yeah, he's back in the Storm for sure. Okay. Now the Knights. Who have you got to win out of the Roosters and Knights?
I've got the Chooks, SCG, was it Saturday Arvo? It doesn't get much tougher than that.
Yep.
Roosters getting the band together for the first time. Newcastle trying to work out who's going to play what role and stuff. I know it's round 1 and you can't rule out any sides, but Roosters are probably my best of the week, I think.
Yeah, I think they'll go all right. So Newey Knights, tough assignment. A fully fit Roosters side, round 1. Tough assignment. But for a season, earlier I was very concerned. The punters are very concerned. They've got a lot of money's gone on them to win the wooden spoon. I actually like what I saw from Adam Clune and Clifford. But I do think it's going to be a tough year for the Knights. Yeah,
I was very impressed with what I saw as well. I got to swallow a bit of pride on that. No doubt about that. They looked a lot better than I thought they would probably all year, to be honest with you. And I think that Kurt Mann's playing a major role in that, the role that he's playing. My only worry is with Kurt Mann. We've said it before, he's too tough for his own good.
Yep.
I do worry about Kurt Mann making 30 tackles, and similar to Victor Radley, you can't say to Kurt Mann, hey, just take it easy.
Yeah.
He'll tell you to get stuffed and go and make 35 on you. So, which is no negative on Kurt Mann, but it is just a worry. I thought the halves looked pretty good. But I think they've got to work out a way to bring KP into this game more, because those 2 trials, you can't have a talent like him not being...
Need 20 to 30 runs from KP.
Oh, mate, without a doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
However many touches he has, it's probably not enough. You always want him to have more. That's the reality of it.
One positive was, though, is they played pretty well in the trials, and he wasn't a main feature of it. So that's a positive.
Yeah, it is a positive. Yeah. I look at... the Canterbury side they played, I mean, my jury's very much so out there. Melbourne side, they were missing a few troops, and when they did have their best players on the field, they did sort of cut Newcastle apart. But most teams, Melbourne will cut apart when they got their best players on the field. So I had Newcastle as a real contender to finish last. I had them as a bottom 4 team. I still think they're a chance to finish 13th or 12th, but I don't think it's going to be the tyre fire that I probably thought it was going to be originally.
Oh, sorry, Roosters, 1 to 4?
Yes,
Yeah.
1 to 3.
1 to 3. I'll go 1 to 4. Yeah. Knights. Is there a concern? Hasn't been much talk about this. Tyson Frizzell has a player option for next year. To my knowledge, has not taken it up. Could they? Like, is he waiting to see what KP does? Do you think?
Yeah,
because he's a premier back row.
Newcastle might not even realise they've got to sort him out. I think all their eggs are in one basket here, which I understand completely. But to be honest with you, it doesn't surprise me. We haven't heard much about Frizzell. But if he hits the open market, good God, there'll be a lot of teams very keen to get their paws on a back rower like him. He is a true leader within every club, rep, whatever football team you want to pick. Tyson Frizzell is going to lead the way there. So,
I thought he was one of their best players last year.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. Very positive, glass half full stuff. They have the Saifidi brothers. Daniel's locked up to 2026. Jacob to 2024. I think they've done really well there.
That's the other thing as well with that trial against Melbourne. You've got to consider that the 2 Saifidi boys weren't playing. We've spoken about this the last few weeks. Mate, you take out your 2 best front rowers, and most teams turn to water.
In a team that needs those front rowers.
They desperately need them, So I think those 2 are going to have massive seasons this year. I'm really excited for Jacob. I thought he was great last year.
When you look at it, Daniel, Jacob, and the rotation of David Clemmer.
Mate, it's an unreal footy side, 1 to 13. It's just the 7 jersey and the direction you worry about and getting the best out of KP. That's Bradman Best. He obviously had a couple of niggles the other day, which, as we've said for a number of weeks, is you can't ignore it. It is an issue. It worries me because they need his strike. The other thing I worry about is that they've brought a guy like Dane Gagai up there, which I think will be sensational. I think in attack, though, they need to work out a way to use him more. I just don't. I thought from looking at those first few trials, I didn't think he was getting as much ball as what he needed to. But still, you're much better off having Gagai on your side than not having him.
Oh, for sure. I thought he looked, dangerous when he had the ball.
Yeah.
And I thought he was solid indeed, mostly. So I think they'll work that out. I think he'll offer a lot. Every single week last week, we would constantly talk about how many errors their backs made and how much it hurt the team. Whereas, as outside backs, you should not be making more errors than the forwards. Now, I understand you've got to take high balls and everything for sure, but their error count for the backs is quite high. I think Gagai will show them the way a little bit, mature them up a little bit. I think we're in for a big year from KP, though. I know he was a little bit quiet. I don't know. I get the feeling that this may be the year. I hope it is. I think this is going to be the year we go, wow. Because, if he has a quiet year, he is a superstar. Don't get me wrong. But do you think there might be clubs going, do I pay $1 million for a KP? Whereas if he comes out guns blazing, you go, oh, yeah, 100%, $1 million. Absolutely, no doubt.
Well, I think that a lot of these $1 million deals are paid on potential.
Yeah, okay.
So I still think... I think regardless of how KP goes this year, I think there's a good chance he can get $1 million.
Get $1 million?
With the Dolphins, for example,
okay.
If they are looking for a big name like him. I'm not as convinced it's going to be a huge season for him, but I hope I'm wrong. I just want to see KP carve it up.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, I think, yes, the captaincy outside looking in looks like we're just doing that because we want to keep you. We're desperate to keep you. But I also think it's a smart move. I do believe KP sounds like, when I've spoken to him, he has taken it on board and really understood that he now needs to be Mitchell Pearce for them. He's got to be Mitchell Pearce for them. Doesn't necessarily play the same as Mitchell Pearce, but he has to be that kind of spiritual leader of give me the ball, I'm going to get something done. I'm hoping for a big year from KP. I really am. I think any team with a KP killing it in it can make the 8. Do I have them in my 8 at the moment? No. I've got them probably, after the trials on the weekend, probably 10 to 14.
Yeah, I'll tell you the guy that I feel sorry for in this squad, and it looks like he's going to become a bench rotation, is Mitch Barnett. I'd be filthy if I was Barnett based on how he played last year, that he's not in the 13 anymore. I understand you've got to have Kurt Mann in there, but I probably would have assumed Barnett to get the left back row spot. It looks like Fitzgibbon's got it. But yeah, Barnett coming off the bench with a point to prove is going to be handy. And that's where you're going to have Saifiti and Barnett, or Barnett and Clemmer on the bench, as you mentioned. It's pretty handy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, interesting year for the Knights. I think they're going to struggle, but it sounds a bit bizarre. The most important thing is they re-sign Kalen Ponga. That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That's honestly more important.
It's more important than how they go this year.
Which is crazy to think.
Yeah, ludicrous, but true.
Put it this way. If KP leaves, I think that you've got to you increased Frizzell leaving substantially.
Yeah, I think you increase a few of them leaving. To be honest with you,
so I hope. And it seems, look, from what I've heard, it seems like he's getting closer to re-signing than ever. If you had said at the start of the year he's going to re-sign, I would have said, I don't think so. I don't think so. Now, I'm probably leaning more towards he's going to re-sign.
Yeah?
Yeah. I really do.
Before we move on them too, shout out to Edric Lee. I think the last game of first grade he played was for Queensland in Origin 3 of 2020.
Yeah, true.
He didn't have a contract. He was on a training trial. He's fought his way back into that side. Yep. So regardless of what you think of Edric, or you might hold a couple of errors against him in the past, good on him for fighting through that and getting himself another NRL contract. It's hard to do.
Bloody oath. Now, so you've got them 10 to 14th?
I'll go 12 to 16.
Ooh. What do you hate?
But I'm not
so much?
Don't do
I
this
know
to
we'll
me.
get those comments.
Don't do this to me. Nah, look, we're here to give our honest opinion.
Just say you hate the Knights and we can move on.
No, I just think that they will be 12th, 13th. It's probably more likely than your 15, 16, or 12, 13. Sorry, would be higher. I can't even count. 13, 14 will be better than my 15, 16. But yeah, I still think they're only an injury or two away from being in a bit of Barney.
It's as we get close to the season, it still baffles me they allowed Pearce to go instead of re-signing him for another year. And it's my understanding Pearce, it wasn't as clean cut as like Pearce was desperate to go. My understanding was that he just wanted them to be like, we want you to stay. That's, you know what I mean? Like I think even I was I definitely was guilty of saying Pearce was the one that was like, I absolutely want to go. Let me release. And it was the Knights kind of saying, nah. But yeah, again, to my understanding, it was a bit more grey of like
the Knights. It's more and more what we're hearing.
Yeah, the Knights probably could have kept him had they wanted to really try to keep him.
Yep, and Newcastle, they've whatever that thinking was, they've backed it in. So fingers crossed it comes good for them.
Absolutely. Now on to the Warriors. How do you think the Warriors will go this year?
I think they'll do well. Another team that I considered for 8th spot, but I think they'll just miss it. I think they will need a good injury run. The forward pack is just full of absolute monsters, which I love to see. Back rowers have got a heap of upside. Between Aitken, Curran, we're hearing that Katoa's had a huge preseason as well. One to keep an eye on. If he lands on that right edge, him and SJ could form a pretty good combo. Hearing as a big bonus, Tohu Harris. The Warriors keep saying round 8 return. Warriors are pretty conservative normally with this sort of stuff. Talking to the NRL physio the other day, he reckons timing-wise, he could be named tomorrow.
What?
His return. Yeah, so just keep an eye on that. The Warriors are it's mission impossible to get anything out of the Warriors when it comes to injuries. But physio said that if you put it in a vacuum, the amount of time he spent out, he should be heading for round 1.
Really?
So I reckon you'll see him back, as does physio, probably round 3 to 5. So something to consider there. Once Tohu returns, that is massive.
Yep.
Big difference from round 3 to round 8. That'll be huge for them. I like this Warriors side. I think they've got good depth. You look at the halves. Whichever way it goes, you're going to have 2 quality 5'8" or halfbacks that are going to miss the side. You got Katoa who can cover as hooker as well. You got Reece Walsh who'll miss the first week or 2 or whatever it is, but he's a star in our game. It's a good squad, man. It is a solid squad. Hopefully we get to see him go home, and then we can see some real fireworks.
Absolutely. I think another positive with this squad, similar to the Rooster squad, most players have played NRL.
Yep.
And my understanding, usually Warriors squad, that isn't the case. Another positive is they don't have many players on massively long contracts. I do believe that the Warriors they're building nicely. Can I see them in the 8? Probably not. Probably not. But I do believe they have an opportunity to really build foundations to eventually push in the 8. Now, could they be a smoky for the 8? Absolutely. I probably... It's really strange because I have the Dragons where they could really struggle and... 14th, 15th, but I also have the Dragons as a smoky for my 8, like more of a smoky than the Warriors, but the Warriors I don't think have that much room between where they will and won't finish. Like I don't think that the Warriors will be a big swing side. I think that you're going to probably see them from 8 to 12, most likely around that 10, 11, 12. So do I think they can make the 8? Absolutely. Absolutely. I love Sean Johnson being back there. I think Reece Walsh, he looked fantastic in the trials. I think he's going to learn a lot from Sean Johnson. I love their forward pack. I think on their day, their forward pack is probably the most underrated forward pack in the NRL.
Yep.
When you compare it to some of the better ones, especially with like Blake, you've got Lodge, Katoa's a beast, Murdoch, Masilla. I really do think their forward pack is underrated. Bailey Sirinen may not even get a start. Tohu, you know what I mean?
Yeah, especially when you consider the way the modern game is played, explosive athletes like so many of these forwards are just so damaging. Penne is another one. So
their front row rotation will be Fanua Blake, Lodge, and Penne. It's pretty fucking good.
Your fourth one will probably be Bunty Afoa, who would run through a brick wall for you. So
that's honestly, that forward pack alone is top 8 for me.
Yep. I think they are the textbook smoky for the top 8. I don't have them in mind, but if they are there, I won't be surprised.
Who's more of a smoky for you, Dragons or Warriors?
I'm very close to tipping the Dragons to finish 8th, to be honest with you. I think they're going to do a lot better than what people think. If you said to me which one's more likely to make the 8, I'd say the Dragons.
Okay. Worst case scenario. What's the issue you see with this Warriors squad?
Mate, I really don't have any huge issues with them. I know that the hooker did well last year, Wade Egan. I'm just not sure if he's the sort of 9 they need to take him to that next level. I know that I'm assuming Nikorima's won the 5'8 jersey, and I think that's fair enough. But I wonder if they'd be a better team with Chanel Harris-Tavita at 6 and maybe a Nikorima at 9. I just think you need more of a running 9 when you've got a pack like this. That's my own, and that's sort of nitpicking, to be honest with you. Reece Walsh has come in off an unbelievable season. I'm confident he's going to be a gun player, but history tells us that guys that come in and have big seasons, they can sort of flat out a little bit. I still think he'll do enough to win them a lot of games. Experience in the outside backs is a worry for me.
That's my issue. My issue is their outside backs. They may turn into... My issue is their outside backs, and not an issue, but Wade Egan needs to progress his game. I think he's a good, solid 9, but if you want to compete with the top sides, he needs to... And don't get me wrong, he absolutely has progressed his game since he went from Penrith to... I was actually surprised Penrith let him go, to be honest. I had pretty big rats on him. But I do believe he's got another gear in him that he needs to find.
I just don't think he's the most suited hooker to this team.
Okay.
That's not an insult to Wade Egan. I think if you put Wade Egan in a few other sides, I think he'd be more suited to them.
I actually think he'd suit like an Eels.
I was just about to say Parramatta. Yeah, I think with a Parramatta side that is so heavily reliant on their 6-7-1, you could get away with having an Egan sort of footballer there. I think at the Roosters, he'd be just fine as well. But I think at this side with the forward pack they've got, they need to play front foot footy. He needs to be able to, as soon as there's an offload, you need a 9 that can.
He doesn't have a bad running game. I think his running game's okay. He doesn't really use it that much.
Yeah, if I'm playing the Warriors, though, I don't have Wade Egan running game on the whiteboard.
Good point. Whereas Cody Nikorima, I'm going,
I'm going, fuck, I need to be every single offload. We need to wrap up the football on every single play here.
Should they look at rotating Egan and Nikorima?
They should have last year. They didn't. So I'm not convinced they will. The inexperience in the outside backs. There's a couple of guys there that I absolutely love. Rocco Berry, Valia. I love these guys, but they are inexperienced. Edward Cossey's another one. Montoya. I mean, outside of DWZ, you're looking at a very inexperienced backline, especially now that you've got Aitken playing in the back row.
And, DWZ, very inconsistent himself.
Tough as nails, great to have him on your team, but he's going to have errors in him, you know that.
Yeah. I mean, I think even in the trials he had a couple errors in him.
He's always going to have errors in him. Yeah.
That's the one thing I just wish he could get out of his game.
If he got it out of his game, he'd be anything to WZ.
Because I'm such a fan. His ball running is just so good for your team. Like, it arcs the boys up, everything. If you get through a game with, like, maybe one error every second game, man.
I'd love to see if you asked every NRL player who's the hardest guy to tackle one-on-one, I reckon he'd be up there.
Yeah,
I reckon he'd get a lot more votes than what people are anticipating.
Absolutely. And, just to find that form again that saw him as like a really young New Zealand debutant. I think he captained New Zealand as well. Yeah. Like, there was a period there where he was one of the best outside backs in the game. So hopefully he can find that form again. Look, I think it's solid signs for the Warriors. I think if they finish in the 8, it's a win. 8, 9, 10th is solid.
them making the 8 might be dependent on when they get home.
Yeah, true.
If they get home earlier and they play more home games, it could be anything for the Warriors. But yeah, there's a lot of variables going into that that's out of their control as well. But yeah, I think they're definitely a smoky for the 8. Whether they're there or not remains to be seen.
And look who they play, the Dragons.
How
They
good?
play the Dragons, I think. What's the team? They do? Dragons. So, I mean, what a gauge to see how you are. You know, like the Warriors and Dragons.
Be a good game, won't it?
Yeah, they're kind of in the same spot. Remember that famous game they had after the lockdown where Warriors nearly completed every set they had with no errors? Remember that? Or was it Dragons that did that? It was Warriors.
Like 44 from 45 or something.
Yeah,
and the error was in like
at the
80th
end.
minute. Yeah.
Crazy. Fuck, Zach Lomax looks special. He's special, bro.
That move the other day.
Wow.
I won't send you in and do another Mark Gasnier spin, but
Mate.
fuck.
He's fucking, yeah. Look, I like the Dragons. I think they're building nicely. I think that Hook's done everything right in the position that he was in. But the question against Hook has always been, can he take that next step? You know, he can build a roster. He did it at Penrith Panthers. They were a top 4 side. Broncos, he had, decent success. Not great success, but decent. But he's never really been able to take that next step. Is that the same read you get with Hook, or?
Yeah. I mean, and you know Hook a lot better than me. There's a lot of things throughout his coaching career that really puzzle me.
Yeah, puzzle
but
me
it
too.
always just seems to work out to some extent for Hook. It never seems to be a complete and utter tyre fire like I anticipate it will be. Same as last year for the Dragons. I remember watching them in that Charity Shield and going, have these blokes met each other before? What is going on? Then I've said it a few times. I stand by it. They were a barbecue away from playing finals footy last year. I think that they'll go very, very close to it this year. I've got them and the Canberra Raiders. They're my 2 teams I've got in 8th at the moment. I'm having trouble splitting them. I think the first few weeks will give us a pretty good idea, but I just love the depth in this side. I mean, I haven't gone through it to check how many guys haven't played first grade, but just scrolling my eyes through it now, I think that every single player here, I'm confident that every single player has played first grade.
Even Fa'a Musuli?
Yep, he played last year.
Did he? Wow.
Yep, every single player there has played first grade.
How
I
good
think
is
the
that?
least experienced would be the front rower, Jaden Hunt, who's only played probably 2 or 3 games, but everyone else has played first grade. So, mate, you mentioned the right centre Lomax. What about the left centre?
I know. Moses Siruli. Eat your heart out.
I put up something about him the other day, saying that once he works out how good he is, it could be anything. And Nace Finu sent me a message and said, "Mate, I remember sitting with him 5 years ago when he wanted to quit rugby league, and we just said you'll be the best centre in rugby league in a couple of years if you want." And I still don't think he's realised how good he can be.
Oh,
and
he's
he's
not even
just
close.
so damaging.
Yeah.
Like he is. He's one of those guys you just want it to work out for because it's going to be entertaining.
Yep.
It's going to be so entertaining to watch him go about his business. The man's Ben Hunt, though, and we're probably 2 Ben Hunt homeboys, and I'll always stand by Ben Hunt. I think he's an absolute weapon. Love watching him play footy. He's the key to this side, and fuck, I was excited watching him the other night.
Yeah.
Kicking out of his own 20. He just hitting back rows, wrapping around the back of them, getting the ball back.
Well, Hook basically not only developed Hunt, but Hook was a huge part of bringing Ben Hunt through.
Yep.
The under-20s, he was the under-20s coach, brought him through. I think he brought Macca through. A lot of those, like Gerard Yayi, all those boys came through under Hook. So if there is a coach that Hunt is going to work well with, it's obviously Ben Hunt. Just back on Moses Suli, he's the kind of guy where I say, mate, give me 15 runs. I don't care how you get them. I just need 15 runs from you every single game. That's your goal. Don't worry about anything else. Like, obviously, don't make errors in that, all that, other stuff. But all I'd be saying to him is just run the ball 15 times.
Simple, achievable goals, and the upside will come with it.
Yeah, it'll come. Just run the ball 15 times. And if you walk off that field and you might have an error or 2, we can work on that. But if you don't run the ball 15 times, I'm going to have an issue with you.
Yeah. And he's one of those guys, you know he's going to make errors, and I'm okay with it.
Because,
he's got the upside to cover
the
those
upside
errors.
is crazy.
Yeah.
Like, he's the kind of guy that will just tear a team apart before your eyes. Like, when he came in for Manly and just set he was very unlucky to not make that. He ended up getting dropped again because I think one of the boys came back. And fair enough, you're loyal to the guys that were there all year. But he was incredible. He's running for like 200 plus metres from the centre. Like, tell me other centres that have run 200 plus metres regularly.
And as we said about Egan, you don't have him on the whiteboard. Every team's going to have him on the whiteboard in the lead up.
And I guarantee you, every centre is going to be shitting themselves, marking him
100%.
going, fuck, Moses Sully. Like, even a guy as explosive as Starks is going to take a second to be like, oh shit, Moses Sully, because people don't understand how big Moses Sully is.
And I think people, he's made his mistakes in the past and everything. I think people still carry a bit of a stink with him that he's lazy or whatever. I think they downplay his ability, but opposition centres won't be downplaying him.
Not at all.
In any way, shape,
he's
or
form.
He's a problem. They'll be saying to their winger, I need help.
Absolutely. Now, Amon has played more than 4 games, correct?
I believe so. So he's out of the running. Yeah.
If he didn't, you'd basically lock him in for Rookie of the Year, I think.
Yeah, he'll be there and thereabouts. I'm really high on this 7 from South Sydney, to be honest with you. Ilias.
You reckon, really? I like Ilias, but Amon?
He's going to be in a top 6 team.
Amon's out of the running.
He's out of the running. How many games has he played?
He's actually played 11 games.
Wow, so he must have come off the bench quite a bit. Okay, well, he's way out of the running, but he's fucking special. I think Amon's special.
Oh, yeah, he's special. There's no doubt about it. I just think that these Rookie of the Year awards, they do tend to lean towards
the top-tier teams.
Top-tier teams, top-tier positions. Amon will be very good, but this is Jack Bird's team. Not Jack Bird.
Ben
Good
Hunt.
God,
I was like, what the fuck?
Ben Hunt. Yeah,
can't even get a contract.
It's a road call.
He played 3 games at 5'8", 2 games at centre, and the rest off the bench.
Okay.
Yeah, right. I think he's in for a good year. I think he's going to do really good things. I think him and Lomax out on that edge are going to be very dangerous. I think Dragons, best case scenario, 8th. I don't know where I put worst case scenario, to be honest with you. I can't see them get, like, when they were favourites for the Spoon a few weeks ago, that I almost fell off my chair seeing that. That was just ridiculous. But if they were to finish 14th and they had a couple of injuries, I wouldn't be shocked there. But I think they're really going to push for a top 8 berth. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. I think this forward pack, outside of DeBellin and Jack Bird, got it right that time. There's no superstars in there, but they're just tough, consistent first graders, which you can get away with in our game, I think.
Now, we may need to power through these next few because I have a meeting in an hour. Dragons, smoky for the 8, but I've got them 8, anywhere from 8th till 8 till 12th is where I've got them landed. West Tigers.
It's going to get crowded in that 8 to 12, I'll tell you that much. Tigers, I think I can't see them playing finals footy this year. No. I can't put them in the finals. I think they will be a better side than what they were last year. I think Hastings will be a good addition, but they've got to make the right decisions around him. I think the entire outcome of their season hangs in the balance of what they do with Dewey when he returns.
Yep.
If they play him at centre, I'm very down on them all of a sudden. If they play him at 5'8", and they might have to have some tough conversations, I think that's the way they have to go. I don't think they can afford to have him at centre personally.
Yeah, I just although Hastings coming back to the NRL is a fantastic get. I can't see this. I can't see them making that. I really can't. If they do, absolutely fantastic. Absolutely fantastic, and good on them because the amount of negative press the Tigers caught, just massive. And we speak. We don't give them raps each week as well. So sometimes I struggle. Sometimes I feel really bad when I'm speaking about the Tigers because, you don't want to come in every week and be like, oh, my God, what happened here? What happened there? And to be really fair, we did say they had the best off-season, relatively speaking. But after watching the trials, I can't see them making the 8. I really can't. I thought they looked good, solid. I thought Hastings, really did make them look different. But can they challenge your Raiders? Can they challenge a Warriors week in, week out around that 8? You know what I mean? The teams are going to be around that spot. Even Sharks are going to be around that spot. I I just can't. As I said, I do feel sorry. We don't mean to rag on the Tigers, but at the same time, we have to give our honest opinion of where we feel they are.
Yeah, and look, we give our honest opinion. We also said how much of a great signing Api Curacao was. We said how much of a great signing Isaiah Papali'i was. We've been very positive on Jackson Hastings. They're heading in the right direction. I just don't think they can play finals footy this year.
This year. But
and 50% of the competition can't. That's the reality of it.
For sure. But next year, with Api Curacao, with Isaiah Papali'i, you know,
Stefano will be a year older.
Yep.
Tuilagi, hopefully he's still there. Will remain to be seen. Yeah, they're heading in the right direction. There's no doubt about that in any way, shape or form. I just don't see them being in the top 50% of this competition. That's a bloody hard competition.
Absolutely. But they're making the right steps forward, absolutely.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. I think Sean Bloor is a massive loss for them.
Huge loss.
He's
As
such
is,
a good player.
they're missing Adam Dewey, which will hurt. Also, the next guy that would have been in is probably Tommy Talau. That's a loss for them too.
Yeah, Tommy Talau's a young gun. Tigers I've actually got 12 to 16. Melbourne Storm. Now, we all know how crazy is it seeing that 5-year deal. Holy shit.
I was saying to Matty before, there's only 2 guys in the NRL that are signed up to 2027, Jack Howarth and Taumalolo, which is crazy to think about where those 2 guys are in their careers. Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, that dude. Now, wow, Cam Munster can sign with another club at the end of this year. Holy shit. That's scary times. Look, let's get out. We all know Storm every year, great roster, fantastic. So let's get out of the way. They'll be in the top 3. My only concern is their depth in the middle. That's my only concern.
It's a big worry, for sure.
If they get a couple injuries there.
Yeah, they're 1 or 2 injuries away from it being a little bit of a problem, I think. And I mean, the one that I was excited about this preseason was Tepai Moroa, that he's got huge upside. We got to their last trial, they picked a 30-man squad. He played reserve grade, so that's a bit of a worry for me. Howarth, I'm huge on him. I'll be honest, he didn't impress me as much as I thought he would in the trials. I think he's still a little bit raw.
Yeah, he's still too green.
Yep.
I think he may jag a bench spot just because they have committed so much to him. Do you know what I mean? Like they've committed so much to him, so let's develop him as much as possible. Again, I know this sounds absolutely stupid. Who would go against the maestro Craig Bellamy? I just don't think he's a centre. I think he's a fucking good back rower. And if I was the coach, thank God I'm not, but if I was a coach, my job this year would be developing him to replace Kafusi or Bromwich.
I don't think he'll get a round 1 spot.
You don't reckon get a 17?
I don't think so. I think they'll go with Nelson on the bench. I think they'll get one of these other front rowers, and then I think they'll go Tommy Eisenhuth as well. Then they'll probably have a utility.
Yep, I can see that.
I think long term he's going to be a star. I'm so confident of that. But I think he's got time. He's got to play more and more Queensland Cup.
I think by the end of the year he's cemented a bench spot.
Yeah, I think by the end of the year, yes. But yeah, I don't think. I think he'll be named in the 25-man squad that they have to name tomorrow.
Yep.
But yeah, it's interesting when you look at their side. Only 4 guys that are signed for 2024 and beyond in 2024 is Howarth, Pappenhausen, Remus Smith, Christian Walsh. Pretty handy 4 to have, but interesting times.
Yeah, very interesting time. They got a lot of players that are off contract soon. Melbourne Storm top 3 for me.
Yep, top 3.
Top 3.
Shocking season, they might finish 4th.
Yeah, in a bad season, they'll finish 4th. Watch the Cam Munster space, though. The fact that he can sign with another club at the end of this year is, wow, that's big.
Is Smithy high on Munster this year? Are you excited about him? Or?
Yeah, he seems excited. He was definitely shocked at the length of the Holworth deal, but not in a negative way. He was just like, far out. That's massive. But yeah, he's picked the Storm to win the comp this year. I won't talk any more about what we spoke about in private.
That prelim must be stinging bellyache.
Yeah. We actually had Bellyache on the podcast and spoke to him, and it's just funny watching Cameron Smith trying to G him up, just saying like, so where do you predict you're going to finish? And Bellyache hates giving predictions. And Bellyache was like, mate, I just hope we have a good training session tomorrow, mate. Cam Smith, he picked the Storm to win the comp, so he's still very, very bullish on the Storm. Para Eels.
Very impressive trial. Absolutely gave it to Penrith. Spine looks incredible. Who did they play week 1? Gold Coast. Not a bad start for Parramatta.
Yep.
I'll back the Eels to win that one. We've got a lot of depth in their squad. They'll be essentially 1 to 17 apart from Nathan Brown, I believe.
Yep.
Other than that, they'll be ready to rip and tear. So, yeah, I'll take Parramatta in that one, and I think their worst case scenario, I think they finish 6th.
Yep.
Best case scenario, 4th.
Yeah, I've got them 3 to 6. So the best case scenario is 3rd, 6th. If everything goes as well as last year for them, and even though they had that back end year that struggled, it sounds crazy, and I know it's because he's cool, but them having a premiership threat all hinges on, is Dylan Brown going to become the player we know he can be?
Yeah, is he going to take that next step?
Because he needs to be the weapon that they have that, takes them into the territory of going against the big dog teams.
Similar to what we said about Cronulla, that they're a team that could be a smoky for top 4 because they don't lose any players to Origin. Who's Parramatta going to lose?
Yeah, not many.
Paulo?
Maybe Paulo. If Grant's injured, they might lose Marnie. Other than that,
I think Paulo's the only one that they definitely will lose for that period.
I do believe that if you're a Para, this has got to be the year.
This is it.
Otherwise, it's going to be in another 2 to 3 years again, I think, or another 24 months where you might challenge.
They won't use the R word rebuild, but I think to some extent it will be. It won't be a complete rebuild, but I think they will have to rebuild a little.
It'll be
bit.
like, I think, a little plateau maybe. They've got to find a placement for Reed Marnie.
Because you can't win a competition based on how the top 3 teams in this league are right now if you're rebuilding or plateauing.
Yeah,
that's the reality of it.
But I love what the Eels have done, and for many years now, Matt, you would back me up on this. I've been fighting the mob, the anti-para mob of the amount of times where they bow out in finals and fucking you need to get rid of Moses, you need to get rid of Arthur, and I've said, guys, do you realise where they've come from? It takes time to build into a premiership threat. And I believe, even though they bowed out against Parramatta, against the Panthers this year, I believe each year they have shown progress. Do you agree or disagree? Yeah,
look, I've been one of those ones you've been fighting for quite some time, to be fair. I won't hide away from that. I thought last year against Penrith, they didn't deserve to lose. I thought they played really well in that game. They were probably just 1 or 2 key blokes that were out away from potentially winning that one. Yeah, once again, though, I'm not convinced they're going to win a comp this year.
Oh, for sure.
They're in a better spot to win it than when they have been the last few years, but that still doesn't tell me they're going to beat these top 3 sides, which I know Parramatta fans get upset about, people saying that, but those top 3 sides are bloody good.
Yeah. I mean, out of all the years, this is, I believe, their strongest roster with the biggest chance to beat those top 3 sides, though.
For sure.
Because they did beat the Melbourne Storm twice last year. They took Penrith to the edge, and that's where I think that extra % that Brown can bring maybe can tip them over the edge into a premiership threat.
They're another team that, even if they finish 5th, I think that they know they're a good enough team to play finals. It's once again, it's about tapering at that right end of the season.
For sure. So do I think that they're in the same ballpark as the top 3? Not yet, but do I think this is the best chance the Eels have had in the last decade to challenge for a premiership? I think so.
Yeah, and this is credit to Parramatta because they're in that top 6 conversation, but they're in the bottom 3 of that top 6. They get spoken about in a somewhat negative fashion because they're in the premierships game. Now, we could talk about them in a much more positive manner if they weren't in the premierships game.
For sure.
So, yes, it might sound negative at times, but it's a compliment to Parramatta because you are a true contender. But in order to win, you have to beat those top 3 teams who are on another level at the moment.
And they're in the toughest position because that 3 and down gets rated by the clubs because can you promise those guys a premiership? No, you cannot. So saying stay and sign on unders, it's basically why they lost Reed. My understanding is they were offering him massive unders. If the Storm are offering you massive unders, if Roosters are, you can kind of go, oh, okay, I'll stay for unders because blah, blah, blah.
Mate, there's such a gaping hole between Parramatta and the rest of the comp. The guys underneath them, it's not even funny to me.
Yeah, they're when you compare them to everything outside of that top 5, it's So again, I'm excited for Eels.
Yep.
I'm very excited for the Eels this year, and I think by round 12, we may be sitting here going, you know what, they are a premiership threat. I think that the years before, you could kind of not guarantee, but you could say, I just don't think they're ever going to get there. But I don't think anyone can confidently say right now they are not a premiership threat and I will not change my mind all season. Fair?
Yeah,
Fair?
They're the same as Manly. They're waiting for finals footy. I know they're going to have a good regular season. I know that. It's finals footy they need to show it.
Gold Coast
Hopefully they do.
Titans.
Yeah, Titans, I don't have them in my top 8. I think they'll be bottom 4.
Bottom 4.
I do.
Holy shit, Guru. Just say you hate them, bro.
I hate it when you do this to me. No, but I just think the NRL's bloody hard. They've got a very young spine. Matty, can you work out how many losses were they away from being bottom 4 last year? I mean, it doesn't fill me with confidence what I've seen last year. I know a lot of people are high for Fafita, had the most tries ever by a forward. He finished 8th with a losing record still. Like, I think it's going to take time. I think that if they have 1 or 2 injuries in the spine, who's playing there?
So Titans had 14 losses last year and came 8th. The Tigers had 16 losses and they were bottom 4. So 2 was the difference.
Okay.
See what I mean? I just don't... I know it sounds like a crazy hot take, but when you look at it on the ladder, wins and losses last year, they really weren't that far away from it.
Yeah. I've got them 8 to 10. 8 to 12. Maybe even 9th to 13th. But I do see where you're coming from because that puts them in...
Still, that puts them in 13th as bottom 4.
Yeah. No, I see where you're coming from for sure. If they play as good as they can play, they have a great year, they will be fighting for that 8 position. I can't see them any higher than 8.
And I just think the reality is with the Gold Coast Titans, and I think it's going to be more so now that they're even younger, if you want to get into a shootout, they'll shoot with you all day.
Yeah.
If you want to grind with them, it's not what the Titans are about. Maybe it'll change.
That's their biggest concern, yeah. That's their biggest concern. Great attacking side, but sometimes they can leak some points.
If you want to wrestle, they're not here.
Jaden Campbell's one of my most exciting players to watch this year.
Yep.
He looks special. I can't wait to see AJ Brimson have a full year of footy. Tino as a captain, love it. Fafita, he looks ready to go. Maybe we'll see him go the whole nother level. I think their centres are some of the most underrated centres in the competition. Herbert and Kelly, absolutely love them. Then they've got Corey Thompson, one of the most underrated wingers and probably should have got a Queensland berth last year. I think he got injured though. Look, if they have I understand where you're coming from, but I just think that they've shown enough, if they can sort their defence out, that they can be competitive from 8th to 10th around there, hang around there.
Big if.
Yeah, I know.
It's a big if in one preseason. It looks like Kevin Proctor's not going to be in the starting team either, from what I've gathered.
Yep.
I mean,
that's surprising.
Yeah, there's a lot on young shoulders, and I hope that they stick with it because I think they will be successful long term. But this year, I'm worried about them.
I think they absolutely need to recruit an older half, even if he's not, going to play first grade each week, just to help the young boys. Because if it does start going south, wow, the pressure on them is going to be massive. But I think Brimo will be able to lead them. I'm hoping that they'll go all right. North Queensland Cowboys.
Yeah, this is probably my spoon favourites, unfortunately. They looked good the other day, but they look better than what I anticipated they would. But I just think we've just seen more and more of Todd Payton's decisions that I don't understand, that I don't get. It looks like we'll see Taumalolo playing the jersey 13, which I think hinders the North Queensland Cowboys. I shouldn't say hinders. It just you're not utilising him as best as you can for me. The halves, we've spoken about it before. They played well. I'm still surprised that this team doesn't have drink water in it. I don't know. I just look at them and I don't think they've got the strike to compete with this rest of this competition.
Yeah, I'm picking them 12th to 16th. I probably don't have them as wooden spoon favourites. But
have you got a spoon favourite?
Probably, right now, I would probably say the Doggies.
Yeah, fair shout. Okay. I think what you're looking at with the Cowboys, this is what they are. I think at least the Bulldogs have growth in them. For sure.
And my concern is the performance of. I know it was a trial, but man, that was.
It was poor. Yeah,
it was really
no
poor.
doubt about that. Yeah.
And they're no closer to cementing. Anyway, we'll get to Doggies when we get to it. Whereas Cowboys, out of all the trials, I actually think they trialled probably the best.
And you know what? I don't disagree with you. But I just can't. I just think when the crunch time comes,
I just think Townsend's too good of a half to wooden spoon.
But Townsend has always been a good half, but he needs guys around him. And I don't know if he's got the band around him.
I think he's got a good enough kicking game to stop him from being a wooden spoon team. Like, he's got a good enough kicking game to get them in a position to win enough games to not be on the bottom of the table, you know? Whereas the thing with, like, the Doggies is that, you know, Burton is not a half that's going to lead you around, and they're still really uncertain as to what type of footy they play. I just...
Look, okay. If they're not spoon, I've got them bottom 3. I'm confident on that.
Put it this way. Out of the Queensland side, they trialled the best, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Out of the Queensland sides. And I
in saying that, their one trial that they played their full squad was against another Queensland team.
Yeah, fair. And they've got depth in the halves. You know, I think Ruben Cotter, I think eventually they'll move Cotter to 13. They'll put Tamalolo in front row, hopefully. Peter Hiko is a gun. Holmes looked much improved. Hillam Lukey is really good. Nanai. Reece Robinson, if he finds his feet. Hamiso looked really good. Yeah, I've got 12 to 16.
They just struggle when they go away from home too.
Yeah,
and I don't think it's not a fortress up there like it should be.
Okay, Doggies. We'll get through this quickly because I have to bounce. I just signed really well, but I'm still not seeing the clicking that I hoped.
Games aren't won on paper. That's the reality of it. It's going to take them a lot of time. By the time it might take, coach might be looking for another job, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think Trent Barrett and Michael Maguire are probably the most under pressure out of all the coaches. If they finish 12th, that's a win, in my opinion. That's a massive win.
Yeah, I think so. It's a huge improvement. If they finish 12th, it means that they've probably won more games this year than what they've won in the last 2 years combined. So that'd be a win. It's going to take time. That's the reality with
the positive is that at least there is light at the end of the tunnel. At least Gus Gould can watch this year and be like, all right, what do I need to do?
Gus is the positive.
Gus is a massive positive. Negative is their salary cap is absolutely fucked right now. Like, they actually still haven't let go of the players they need to let go of to be cap compliant, I think, for 2023.
Yeah.
So, look, I just hope if you can get Tavita, you can get Luke Thompson, Addo Carr, Hetherington, you know, you get those boys firing. A lot can happen off the back of energy. Vaughan, Dufty. So, yeah. I'm hoping 12th, around the 12th, but I think 12th to 16. Sorry we had to rush those last one, guys. Really do apologise. We'll try to those last like 3 or 4 next week. Maybe we'll try to go a little bit deeper in again. But sorry about that. So what we'll do is right now is we'll just go through our tips very quickly. Panthers, Sea-Eagles.
I'm gonna take Penrith 1 to 12.
I'm going Sea-Eagles. Raiders, Sharks.
Raiders.
Sharks. Broncos, Rabbitohs.
Rabbits.
Broncos. Roosters, Knights.
I'm going to go the Chooks.
Roosters. Warriors, Dragons.
Dragons.
I'm going Dragons. West Tigers, Storm.
Melbourne.
Same. I'm going Storm. Eels, Titans.
Para.
I'm going Para. Cowboys, Doggies.
Where is it? North. I'll go the Cowboys.
I'm going Cowboys as well. Apologies that we had to wrap that up short, guys. I really am sorry. I didn't think we'd go this long. Make sure to grab a case of Bloke in a bar from your local. We're in every celebrations, Bottle IJ in New South Wales ACT, but also in Queensland. So check our store locator. We're nationwide. Check our store locator, blokeinabar.com. Join the Bloke Club, bloke.club, for merch. Limited supply, guys. Limited supply. Please jump on so you're not upset. You're not sending messages, I missed out after 5 minutes. Be ready, 7 p.m. New South Wales time, 6 p.m. Queensland time. Footy Cliche 2022. You got anything to say, Guru?
Beers and Break Even, Supercoach show tomorrow night. Come and join us and then come to DY on Thursday for a beer.
Oh, yeah. DY Hotel, Thursday, 6:30. Be there. First ever live show by Bloke. And as usual, I'll go and fuck myself. Thank you.